Chapter 399, Relying on the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl to Save My Life. Chapter 399, Relying on the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl to Save My Life. He heard the spirit beast's voice. Jiang Hao felt somewhat helpless. When had he ever said that he had never eaten jujubes before? However, since the beast had said it already, he didn't care much about it. Hong Yuye stood on the balcony and smiled. Then, she moved her index finger. The trace of power was something Jiang Hao couldn't even perceive. At this moment, Xiao Li exclaimed in surprise. "Little beast, what's happening? Why has your face become so big? Little beast, say something." Hong Yuye glanced at Jiang Hao. This made him uneasy. "Do you remember the progress you mentioned earlier?" Hong Yuye said in amusement. "I hope there will be good news next time." Her figure began to blur. Then, she disappeared from sight. Jiang Hao breathed a sigh of relief. While she didn't do anything to him, he still felt immense pressure. Standing on the balcony, he constantly felt as though he could be sent flying at any moment and crash to the ground. It was mentally very stressful. At this moment, Xiao Li rushed in while holding the spirit beast in her hands. "Senior brother Jiang, something bad has happened." Jiang Hao leaped from the balcony to the courtyard. The beast in Xiao Li's arms had a swollen face and was barely alive. "Put it aside. It will wake up on its own," Jiang Hao said. Xiao Li gently placed the beast under a tree. Immediately after, she took out some jujubes and handed them to Jiang Hao. Jiang Hao accepted them. He took a bite. The fruit wasn't sour or sweet. It was just okay. Xiao Li sniffed around the area and looked surprised. "It's that senior sister's scent." Jiang Hao didn't think much about it. If Hong Yuye was okay with it, then so be it. However, this scent was far from that of any senior sister. It was the scent of a Demoness that could potentially end their lives. At most, she appeared as a beautiful woman. He didn't know when Xiao Li's cultivation realm would surpass Hong Yuye's. Jiang Hao sighed. At that moment, the beast suddenly cried out. Xiao Li turned her attention back to the beast. In the following days, things started to calm down. Apart from the rumors of the Bloodwish path, there were no other issues. Jiang Hao made many talismans, but he rarely sold them. He continued accumulating experience. Selling the talismans wasn't easy. What was more important was to accumulate his cultivation. He did not want any more issues. During this time, he spent 2,000 spirit stones to buy 2 packets of Silver Moon Petals Dash. If Hong Yuye visited him once every few months, then he would lose a lot of spirit stones. Out of the 5,000 spirit stones, he had already spent 2,000. He spent another 1,000 on materials. He continued to make talismans. In early April, Jiang Hao opened his interface after collecting bubbles. Just another 2 months. The Soul Ascension realm was within reach. He just needed to wait a bit more. It was a pity the spirit herb garden had run out of spirit herbs. They would have been quite helpful. While Jiang Hao accumulated points for his cultivation, the fallen immortal clan members who were investigating Jiyu Qing returned to their residence. It was a natural cave. They had passed through a special barrier and intended to deliver the information to their clan's elders. However, when they arrived, they found the cave empty. Though the residences were still intact, there was no sign of their clan members. "You've returned." An elder appeared before them. "Elder, where are the others?" The middle-aged man at the forefront asked. "After Jiyu Qing and the others were discovered, we knew that they would take the sky-piercing shuttle. We're just making preparations. With that treasure, it won't be long till the Bright Moon sect finds this place. That's why we evacuated the place," said the elder. Then, he asked about their trip. "From the clues left by Jiyu Qing, we obtained some information, but some of it is unclear," said Biyu Kang, the leader. "What kind of clues?" The elder led them to a clearing. After they sat down, he took the highest seat. "There were 2 clues," Biyu Kang said. "One is related to a person named Jiang Hao. He's an inner sect disciple of the Heavenly Note sect." He revealed Jiang Hao's identity, cultivation realm, and some speculations they had made. Is he really only at the peak of the Foundation establishment realm? Asked the elder. Yes. Bu Kang nodded. That is strange. What can a Foundation establishment realm cultivator do? The elder shook his head. Put that aside for now. Once we're ready, we can go investigate his surroundings. Nothing can escape my gaze. What about the second clue? Bright Moon Sect, Dao Conference, Foundation Establishment, Bu Kang said. The elder frowned. He stood up and paced around. After a long while, he seemed to have thought of something. Spread the news to the clan. I recall there being records about this within the clan. We need to thoroughly investigate this. But the people within the clan have already left. How do we contact them? Someone asked. Right, I forgot. I'll go myself, said the elder. You can help set up the altar. After some time, I'll go investigate Jiang Hao. The others nodded in agreement. 1 month later, Jiang Hao felt impatient as his points had already reached around 90. The Soul Ascension realm was within reach. He quickly realized that his mind was restless. He tended to the spirit herbs. Calmly. He waited quietly. An unstable mindset could lead to immense danger. This was the downside of rapid advancement in the cultivation realm. Not being able to control one's power would lead to destruction. His virtue didn't match his disposition. Without the heavenly extinction Gu poison, he didn't know if he could have stabilized his mental state. When the future was promising, people tended to believe they were invincible. They would often seek out stronger enemies. As long as he had enough time, they could reach the pinnacle of the immortal path. That was how disaster would start. With things going that way, he was unsure about his own survival. He had to be vigilant against his own arrogance and impatience. That was the most important thing. Back in the courtyard, Jiang Hao saw the peach tree was about to bloom. It was happening quite fast. But it was within reason. As he sat down to read a book and have some tea, he suddenly felt anxious. He sensed someone's gaze on him. Someone was spying on him. What was going on? Someone is prying on my secrets. No, this feels different. What is this? Is it the heavenly essence soul modeling mirror? Jiang Hao didn't think so. The person seemed to be craning their neck to see more. What would happen if he was seen? He had no way of knowing. Without hesitation, he activated the heavenly secret's hidden talisman. It worked. It blocked the person's gaze. However, that gaze didn't disappear. Jiang Hao circulated the Hongmeng Heart Sutra and tried to blind his enemy. But he didn't understand what was happening. The method the person was using to probe wasn't what he had expected. He didn't even know how to respond to it because he didn't know what method it was. Just as the person's gaze probed again, Jiang Hao thought of something. He took out the heavenly fate misfortune pearl. He then threw it in the direction of the gaze. He felt the heavenly fate misfortune pearl tremble as if it wanted to break its seal and emerge. The moment the heavenly fate misfortune pearl became apparent, the gaze disappeared. Jiang Hao used all his might to seal the heavenly fate misfortune pearl that was about to break free of its seal. At that moment, he also used the immortal mountain and sea shield. Soon, everything returned to normal. Who could it be? Jiang Hao frowned. This was definitely the consequence of his previous actions. It was beyond his expectations. Chapter 400 Chapter 400, Stay at the Demoness Place? Chapter 400, Stay at the Demoness Place? In the cave where the fallen immortal clan resided, there was an altar in the center. 8 people stood there, with the elder in the very center. At this moment, the elder opened the third eye on his forehead and peered through endless space to spy on hidden secrets. Everything went smoothly at first, but soon, his brows furrowed as if he encountered some obstruction. He increased his power, and the third eye began emitting a golden light. Everything seemed to have returned to normal. Bu Kang and the others, who were further away from the altar, were waiting. They wanted to know what was special about Jiang Hao. With the elder's intervention, dealing with someone at the Foundation establishment realm should be easy. Just when they thought it would be over soon, the golden light suddenly vanished from the elder's third eye. Is it over? Someone asked. Others wanted to ask the same. However, just as they were about to approach, the elder's third eye shattered. His skin began to rot, and his flesh fell away. Bu Kang and the others were stunned. For a moment, no one dared to approach the elder. The old man's flesh fell away slowly, and his movements were stiff. He turned to look at Bu Kang and the others. But his eyeballs fell out of their sockets. Misfortune. Pearl, he said with the last bit of strength he had left before turning into ashes. The 8 others tried to flee, but in an instant, their bodies withered away. They turned into piles of white bones and dropped to the ground. In the span of a breath, all their remains were wiped out. This was so sudden that Bu Kang and the others found it hard to accept it. They retreated slowly. They were afraid that they would be next. The heavenly fate misfortune Pearl, someone exclaimed in astonishment. Elder mentioned that. What was he trying to tell us? The heavenly fate misfortune Pearl. It has been causing a commotion everywhere lately, said Bu Kang. Elder might have been referring to that pearl while he was spying on Jiang Hao. This pearl is likely in his possession. Several people found it hard to believe. After all, Jiang Hao was merely at the Foundation establishment realm. How could he have something so dangerous? We must inform the others, Bu Kang said without hesitation. While they had located the heavenly fate misfortune pearl, they were unsure whether this was good news or bad. However, it was important to convey the news to their clan before any unexpected events occurred. Suddenly, a flying shuttle breached the protective barrier and appeared above them. What news do you want to send back? Can you share it with me? A figure emerged from within the barrier. He stood aloft. He appeared refined and elegant and gave off an imposing aura. Shu Bai. Bu Kang was shocked. The fact that Shu Bai arrived so quickly caught him off guard. I have important matters at hand, and I arrived somewhat belatedly. I apologize for not bringing gifts due to the rush. How about this? Why don't you accompany me to the Bright Moon sect? I'll make up for my lack of manners with a proper gift. Shu Bai smiled. Go to the Bright Moon sect. Bu Kang sneered. Shu Bai, do you really think you can take us away? Even before he finished his words, a few people made their move. 3 of them flew away while the rest attacked Shu Bai. They didn't need to win. Their goal was to spread the news. Shu Bai smiled softly as he faced the attacks. A folding fan appeared in his hand. He unfolded it. After a while, Shu Bai stood before the altar. He folded and unfolded his fan leisurely. He didn't do much. He merely toyed with the object in his hand. However, behind him, Bu Kang and the others fell to the ground. They were severely injured. It didn't matter whether they hid in the shadows or fled. No one could escape this place. When did you? Bu Kang was shocked. It's not that surprising. Shu Bai looked at the altar ahead with his brows furrowed. What did you do? What did you discover? Everyone remained silent. No answer, huh? Shu Bai looked at them calmly. Then, let's head to the Bright Moon sect for now. It's useless. We won't say anything. You should understand that, Bu Kang said in a low voice. While they might not be strong, the fallen immortal clan members were not the kind to compromise easily. Shu Bai didn't doubt it, but the misfortune connected to the altar made him anxious. He couldn't let it go unattended. It wouldn't be good if the fallen immortal clan had any ulterior motives. Jiang Hao sat cross-legged. The recent events had him worried. Who could be spying on me? Are they looking for something in particular or just spying on me? Jiang Hao thought about every scenario. If someone was trying to find a treasure, the backlash from the heavenly fate misfortune pearl probably might have killed them. But if they were spying on me specifically, then they would have discovered the presence of the heavenly fate misfortune pearl. They might spread the news. Jiang Hao couldn't imagine what would happen when the entire cultivation world learned that the heavenly fate misfortune pearl was with him. The first possibility doesn't have much impact. I just need to be careful. As for the second possibility, it's beyond my power to handle the situation. I must find a way to save myself. He couldn't keep the heavenly fate misfortune pearl on him any longer. Should I give it to Elder Baiji? No, that won't work. Besides, Elder Baiji might not even have the ability to seal it. Then, should I give it to the sect master through Elder Baiji? Jiang Hao shook his head. The sect master was in seclusion. It was even unclear whether they were alive or dead. People in long-term seclusion usually didn't fare well. Should I give it to Hong Yuye? Jiang Hao paced back and forth. Not the best option. I don't even know if she would accept it. Even if she did, she wouldn't be able to explain it to the outside world, let alone the sect. That means I still have to deal with the consequences. Jiang Hao could only think of fleeing the sect. But where could he escape to? He now knew that the Heavenly Secret's hidden talisman couldn't defend against some gazes. Besides, there was the Heavenly Essence Soul modeling mirror. That artifact was even more terrifying than the recent gaze he had encountered. Suddenly, an idea struck him. Hong Yuye's place. Her place would definitely be fortified against spies and probing gazes. But the future was unlikely to offer any other possibilities. Besides, Hong Yuye might not be willing to take him in. He didn't want to go to her place if he could help it. Jiang Hao sat down again and began to think. Perhaps he could involve other people in this matter. He could find a sect or an individual with enough strength and trustworthiness. He could have them take the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl away, and then publicly declare that the item was in their possession. This way, he would be much safer. Furthermore, with other targets in the picture, not many would believe that the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl was in the hands of a Foundation Establishment realm cultivator. So, who should I give it to? Jiang Hao thought about it. There were powerful immortal sects that he could contact, like the Clear Sky School. He could contact them through Liu Xingchen. However, he only wanted to watch. Perhaps, he only wanted to see how things turned out for the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl. It wasn't suitable to contact him. He had only one option left, the Bright Moon sect. Chapter 401, Chapter 401, Submitting to Fate. Chapter 401, Submitting to Fate. The Bright Moon sect was on par with the Clear Sky School. Though they might not be as strong as the Clear Sky School yet, they weren't very far behind. Jiang Hao had collaborated with them before, so he knew a thing or two about them. They were also righteous. Currently, there was no other sect that could compare to them. They were the best choice. Even if I choose the Bright Moon sect, how will I deliver the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl to them? Jiang Hao was silent. He felt that this matter couldn't be delayed. He couldn't visit the Bright Moon sect. If he wanted to make contact with the people of the Bright Moon sect without visiting the sect, then he had only one way. The stone tablet. Jiang Hao recalled the previous gathering. Xing had mentioned that the suppression of the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl was related to the purple energy, and Gui had hinted that the purple energy had something to do with him. After thinking through everything, Jiang Hao felt that this way might be feasible. It was still risky, but it was the best possible way for now. However, the question was whether he should offer to hand over the pearl. He needed to wait for the next gathering. He hoped it would be soon. The previous probing gaze was bound to set off chain reactions. Of course, there was another major issue to consider. He wasn't certain what the spying person wanted. He didn't know which possibility was the right one. If it was the former, everything he was planning now was unnecessary. Moreover, he would expose himself. Jiang Hao realized that he had attracted a lot of attention because of his previous actions, especially when he knew people were spying on him. With a sigh, he took out a book and began studying. He was now able to distinguish the majority of the languages of the Heavenly Spirit tribe. Soon, he would be able to understand what those people were talking about in the corpse realm. 7 days passed, and Jiang Hao hadn't heard any news from the outside world. He frequently had Cheng Chou inquire about events happening outside the sect. Nothing significant had happened yet. The only thing he learned was that the people from the Heavenly Saint sect were being wiped out by their sect. Han Ming was making contributions once again. Jiang Hao didn't pay much attention to that. What he wanted to know were updates about the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl. Unfortunately, he had received none. If there was any news, he wouldn't need Cheng Chou to ask around. The Lawless Tower would have informed him if anything had happened. They would have even invited him over. What should I do? His only hope was the gathering. He decided to make plans on the assumption that the person was spying on him for the second reason. He had to treat it as such regardless. He hoped the impact would be contained. Otherwise, it would be increasingly difficult for him to cultivate peacefully. 7 more days went by. It was already mid-May. Still, there was no news. During this period, he went to the lawless tower a few times. The attitude of his fellow disciples there hadn't changed at all. He asked about Zhuang Yuzhen's experience inside the tower, so he could be prepared. With the reappearance of the hidden spirit, he might be able to avoid his cultivation from getting absorbed entirely. He also asked about how Zhuang Yuzhen had learned about the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. The answer was still the same. He had learned about it from a mysterious person. When Jiang Hao asked about the identity of this mysterious person, he got the same answer again. The mysterious person was mysterious because he didn't know anything about their identity. Jiang Hao was speechless. There was a chance that this mysterious person was actually Dan Yuan, but the likelihood was not very high. Such a person wouldn't expose themselves so easily. He wanted to know more about it because he wanted to prepare for the next gathering. The things he was going to say would have a huge impact. He needed to understand what the others were like. He had interacted with Gui to some extent. Although they weren't close, she did have principles. Lan Qian had returned alive and safe. It meant that Gui didn't kill him unnecessarily after she took over his body. And she knew that the heavenly fate misfortune pearl was in the south and wanted to escape. It seemed like she was afraid of death. Liu was overseas. It was impossible to ascertain what he was like as a person. The only thing Jiang Hao knew about him was that Liu was trying to modify his cultivation method. Theoretically, Jiang Hao was safe from him because he was overseas and couldn't make it here quickly. Xing was the safest of them all. After all, he belonged to the Bright Moon sect. If he didn't trust Jiang Hao's idea, he would simply cast it aside. Dan Yuan was the most mysterious. That's why he needed to find out more about him. He didn't know much about Liu. He could also inquire about the overseas situation through Hai Luo. In the end, he didn't find any clues, but he wasn't bothered. He waited quietly. Whether the gathering came first or the rumors, he could handle it. As for the outcome, he was unsure. He could only try his best. If he ran out of options, he had a last resort. Apart from a tiny minority, no one wanted to die willingly. He could still threaten the spy with death if nothing worked. However, he didn't want to do that. It wouldn't end with the death of only a few individuals. Countless people would perish. He had followed the demonic path, but he wasn't an evil person. He had never killed innocent people. Up to this point, he had cultivated and gained power, but he hadn't done it at the expense of others. He gazed calmly at the night sky. He had thought about it a lot and planned ahead. Now, he was ready. He only had to wait for whatever consequences that would unfold. There was no need to do anything else. I feel at ease having done what I could and accepting the things I can't change. Jiang Hao sighed. He had made the choices himself, so he had to accept the consequences, regardless of them being bad or good. Master, what are you thinking? The spirit beast asked. He glanced at the beast and smiled. Go to sleep. There are spirit herbs to transplant tomorrow. Master, I often see you sitting here alone. How about finding a mistress? It would make the house livelier. But don't pick someone like Miao Tinglian. She doesn't respect me at all. Jiang Hao chuckled. Maybe I will if I have an opportunity in the future. There would probably be no such opportunity. First, he needed to get rid of Hong Yuye. When that day came, how would he handle it? He didn't know. Would he need to escape at that time? Probably not. Would his life go on like it was now? Shaking his head, Jiang Hao returned to his room and started studying the light and dust technique. For some reason, he wanted to study it. He felt as if his body was becoming indistinct. It felt like he was margining with the light and with the dust. Observing these changes, Jiang Hao's mind became clearer. A journey of 1,000 miles could be accomplished in a single step. At this moment, The fusion of spiritual energy and consciousness seemed to have broken some snackrelez. After a while, everything returned to normal. Jiang Hao was astonished. I actually entered the second level. In an instant, he disappeared from his original position and reappeared soon after. What incredible speed! Sensing these changes, Jiang Hao felt that no one of the same level could compare with him anymore. However, he had no idea how to cultivate his spirit. It couldn't expand. If he could cultivate such a movement technique, others could too. Early the next morning, Jiang Hao felt the stone tablet vibrate. He let out a sigh of relief. There was a gathering tonight. It seemed that the gathering was happening before the rumors. This time, he needed to be prepared. He had to pick the right timing and content for his speech. Fortunately, he had laid the groundwork for himself earlier. Whether he could shift the blame this time would depend on their reactions. There was still a risk, but if he succeeded, he would be able to pull himself out. He spent the entire day practicing for the gathering. As midnight approached, he calmed himself. Only with a serene mind could he better handle the situation and think clearly. If he made a mistake, many troubles would arise. The moon was high in the sky when Jiang Hao opened his eyes. It's almost midnight. Without hesitation, he entered the gathering. Soon, he appeared at his seat. He observed the others. There seemed to be no changes in their expressions. It seems there were no rumors regarding the heavenly fate misfortune pearl yet. He couldn't discern anything from Dan Yuan's face. But he'd have to wait until the gathering formally started to know for sure. Even if the rumors had reached here, he was prepared to handle it. Chapter 402. Chapter 402. I've exposed myself. Chapter 402. I've exposed myself. The gathering began. After greeting Dan Yuan, everyone sat down cross-legged on the floor. Jiang Hao wasn't in a hurry. He waited quietly. He couldn't afford any mistakes in the impression he left behind. Otherwise, it would invite suspicion. It wouldn't be favorable for what follows. Any issues with your cultivation progress? Dan Yuan asked. No one spoke up. Several months had passed, and they hadn't made much progress at all. Advancement wasn't an easy task. What about the news of the Saint Bandits? Dan Yuan asked again. I've heard some news about them, Xing said. The Saint Bandits have been secretly searching for individuals with average talents who seek ways to enhance their cultivation. Especially those who use unconventional methods. Most of them belong to demonic sects. They are the main target of the Saint Bandits. Moreover, they also steal talents from some individuals, but strangely, they never take special talents from ordinary people. It seems they can only steal talents that have manifested. Lately, the Bright Moon sect seems to be targeting the Saint Bandits, but they still can't find their true identity. Searching for individuals who use special methods to enhance their cultivation? Jiang Hao thought of the Bloodwish path. Does that count? There was also Bai Yi's method, which should also be considered. The black pearl formed from the land's nutrients was used to enhance his cultivation. If the Saint Bandits are looking for people like that all over the place, they'll probably find me too. But with so many demonic sects, it's unlikely they'll signal me out. Jiang Hao didn't think much about it. Even if the Saint Bandits came looking, it wouldn't pose a significant problem for him. If these people stole a disciple's talent from the Heavenly Note sect, the law enforcement hall would intervene. Something like that was no different from killing a disciple. Dan Yuan nodded. Anything else? No one else spoke up. The Saint Bandits were in the eastern region, while the others were not. It was too difficult to gather information about them. With no further information and no follow-up tasks, the gathering moved on to the next phase. Jiang Hao noticed that news about the heavenly fate misfortune pearl had not spread yet. It seemed those who were trying to spy on him wanted the information to remain secret for now. Maybe they wanted to take matters into their own hands. Will you all be in the eastern region for the next few years? Xing suddenly asked. I'm already on my way. What task do you have? Gui asked. During the Bright Moon sect's Grand Dao conference, I'd like you all to take certain positions, Xing said. For the sake of the Heavenly Dao Foundation establishment. Liu asked. More or less. This matter will attract a lot of attention, and there might be some trouble at that time, Xing said. Jiang Hao nodded. If he went, it would accelerate the appearance of the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment. An individual with the potential for great luck in the future would benefit any sect they were born into. Because when misfortune appeared, only such individuals would be qualified to suppress them, like the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl. An individual with great luck should be able to seal the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl, just like him. I'll send someone, Dan Yuan said. Jiang Hao and the others weren't surprised by this. Dan Yuan had always been pushing for the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment. I'll stay in the east for a while, said Gui. I can't free up my schedule for now, Liu said helplessly. Then, Xing looked at Jiang Hao. I might be able to go, Jiang Hao said after a brief hesitation. He didn't want to agree, but he needed to set the stage for what was to come. The location of the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl was a problem. He might need Xing. Xing thanked everyone. For the reward, I can offer magic treasures and pills. Jiang Hao nodded, but he didn't really want any of those. However, if he went, he would likely activate their luck and further support the emergence of the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment. The Bright Moon sect wasn't lacking in power or strength. Even if many people spied on them, they could withstand it as long as the other sects didn't launch a large-scale attack or incite internal conflicts. After that, there were no more tasks. This led to the final phase of the gathering. Jiang Hao was the first to speak up. His voice was low and devoid of emotion. I have something to say to you all. Everyone was surprised that Jing had spoken up. Usually, Jing just listened attentively and avoided initiating conversation. Everyone was curious. They wondered if something had happened near the Heavenly Note sect again. But their eyes widened when they heard what he had to say. I gave the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl to Jiang Hao of the Heavenly Note sect. In just a few words, a multitude of messages were conveyed. Gui and the others were stunned. It was difficult for them to calm themselves. Gui looked at the others beside her in astonishment. The Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl they had been discussing was in the hands of this person right beside her. She recalled how Xing had said that purple energy had prevented the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl from erupting before. The only person she could associate with the purple energy was Jing. Suddenly, it made sense. Jing had gone to the Heavenly Note sect and found that the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl was about to erupt. So, he might have intervened and acquired the pearl. The others also guessed the same. After all, whenever purple energy was mentioned, Gui always looked at Jing. However, they were still puzzled. I remember Jiang Hao is only at the Foundation establishment realm. Is it safe to entrust it to him? Gui asked. Giving such a dangerous item to someone at the Foundation establishment realm seemed risky. Gui had asked a valid question. Xing and Liu also wanted to know the answer. They had considered the matter beforehand and were certain that Dan Yuan was also watching Jiang Hao closely at this moment. With the appearance of the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl and it being held by someone at the Foundation establishment realm, no one would be at ease. Jiang Hao thought for a moment. If you're concerned, you can ask him for it. Gui was the first to back off. I won't ask for it. I'm afraid I won't be able to suppress it. Liu didn't say anything. He looked at Xing. Xing was silent. He seemed lost in thought. Is there a reason that you arranged it that way, friend Jing? Asked Dan Yuan. Jiang Hao had already considered that question. The only suitable answer was greater safety. After careful consideration, I thought that placing it there is the safest option, Jiang Hao said. Is it due to the unique nature of the Heavenly Note sect, or is it because of some special quality of the individual? Gui asked. Both, said Jiang Hao. Suddenly, Xing seemed to have thought of something. I heard that disciples of the Bright Moon sect attacked a certain faction. They witnessed an extremely terrifying misfortune there. Just as the people from that faction were about to spread the news, they were wiped out by the Bright Moon sect. Now, they refuse to disclose what they have discovered. Jiang Hao was taken aback. Those might be the people who had spied on him before. But why would they spy on him in the first place? Who had enmity with the Bright Moon sect? Among those with enmity with the Bright Moon sect, very few had any connection to him. Jiang Hao thought of one possibility. Jiyu Qing from the fallen immortal clan. This was the only thing he could think of. Most of his trouble started with the captives from the Lawless Tower. There were two people who had managed to leave from the Lawless Tower, Jiyu Qing and Mi Lingyu. Mi Lingyu was certainly not the one behind this, so Jiyu Qing was the likely suspect. Chapter 403 Chapter 403, Going to the Bright Moon Sect. Chapter 403, Going to the Bright Moon Sect. Jiang Hao was confused about how Jiyu Qing had managed to pass on the message to the fallen immortal clan. She had been at the Lawless Tower all along and was later taken away by Shu Bai. She didn't have any contact with others. At most, he had gone there for a visit. Suddenly, it dawned on Jiang Hao. The mines. The mining site was the most unregulated place and the easiest place to pass on information. Jiyu Qing had a grudge against him, so she would undoubtedly use various methods to spread unfavorable news about him. I should have followed her to the mining site on her first day there. Jiang Hao sighed. He had nothing more to say. Unfortunately, there wouldn't be another chance. He could only deal with the current situation for now. However, the outcome he had imagined had not yet come to pass. I have a question, Gui said. According to Xing, there will always be people spying on the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl. If everyone knows that the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl is in Jiang Hao's hands in the Heavenly Note sect, what will we do? It would be impossible for the whole Heavenly Note sect to defend it, let alone a Foundation Establishment Realm Cultivator. She had asked a good question, and Jiang Hao was pleased. That was the exact question he needed the answer to. If no one brought it up, he would have had to bring it up himself. Now that Gui had asked it, he was pleased. Xing hesitated for a moment. Can I take it away when the time comes? He asked Jiang Hao. Of course. Jiang Hao agreed without hesitation. He had planned for the Bright Moon sect to take it away anyhow. However, since the person spying on him had been caught and no news had leaked, he didn't need to rush. Furthermore, he now had a guarantee of safety. All eyes turned to Dan Yuan. Then, it settled. Dan Yuan nodded. Jiang Hao understood that no one was willing to take responsibility for the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl. Because of him, he could control the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl. After all, he had prevented an eruption before. For the time being, no one else would get involved. A slight misstep could lead to destruction. The matter of the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl was too huge for everyone to remain calm. They felt that Jing was always quiet, but when he did speak, it was a big deal. Speaking of the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl, I've noticed that some overseas individuals have retreated. Both the Black Heaven sect and the Immortal Sunset sect have taken action. After all, once the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl is found, the danger lies in the southern region, and they obviously won't allow that, Gui said. Then, she looked at Jiang Hao. She couldn't have imagined that such a pearl could be handled by such a reserved person. And now, it was in the hands of a Foundation Establishment Realm Cultivator. Was this a show of high regard? No matter how she looked at it, she didn't consider Jiang Hao special. After all, she had interacted with him for a while, and he always acted cautiously. Was it because of that? She realized that Jiang Hao wasn't very reckless and ambitious. He was a very calm and stable person. She should have tried to get him on their side back then. But it was too late now. Jing handing the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl to him spoke volumes. The matter of the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl will certainly continue for some time. Those people won't give up so easily. With the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl in hand, there are far too many people it can intimidate, Liu said. Didn't I mention a group of people suddenly appearing overseas before? These people seem to be plotting something, and the surrounding seas have suddenly quietened down. Now, some heavenly kings are planning to investigate the matter. Jiang Hao felt that quite a few strange things were happening overseas. First, there was a strange phenomenon on the seabed, and now, there was more strangeness on the small islands. But they hadn't brought about any significant impact, and he didn't know why. After that, Jiang Hao remained silent and listened to their discussion about the recent events. Gui asked the most questions, so Jiang Hao could also learn a lot. For instance, he learned what to be wary of when traveling to the eastern region. Although the Clear Sky School and the Bright Moon sect were present there, one still needed to be extremely cautious. After all, the demonic sects in the eastern region were not to be underestimated. The eastern region was prosperous and filled with talent. A small misstep could easily lead to danger. Some time passed, and Jiang Hao exited the gathering. He let out a heavy sigh. Then he took out his notebook and began jotting down the key points of the gathering. First, the Saint Bandits mission was still ongoing. The individuals involved haven't been identified yet, but they are likely to contact those who advance using special methods. Secondly, it was important to attend the Bright Moon sect's Tao conference to promote the emergence of the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment. Finally, the revelation that the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl was given to Jiang Hao. He learned from Xing that the spying individual might be from the fallen immortal clan. The news hadn't spread yet. If rumors become widespread, the Bright Moon sect will take over the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl. These were the three main points. There was no need to be concerned about the other people targeting the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl for now. He didn't know much about overseas matters. Having a general understanding of the situation was enough. Of these 3 points, the first wasn't too important. The second required some consideration. The third was the most crucial. Now they all consider me to be associated with Jing. It's not necessarily a good thing for me, but at least I have a shield. As long as Jing stands firm, they won't do anything to me, which will buy me more time. Exposing the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl also carries risks, but currently, they don't seem interested in getting their hands on it. Jiang Hao thought it over and realized that once a karmic connection was established with the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl, it would likely cause a lot of trouble. However, Jing could prevent the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl from erupting. Thus, it gave them a greater advantage. Naturally, Jing's arrangement received some recognition. More importantly, the impression that Hing had left in the gathering was significant. He seemed mysterious, quiet, and eccentric. Those were enough for now. The only thing lacking was a clear demonstration of strength. This upcoming trip to the Bright Moon sect would expose his true identity. Jiang Hao sighed. He stopped overthinking things. He had made all the necessary arrangements, and everything seemed reasonable. He had arrived in the southern region as Jing, and when the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl was stopped from erupting by the purple energy, Gui associated the purple energy with Jing. Furthermore, Xing had mentioned his name before and considered it special. He had also casually mentioned his intention to get in touch with him. It made sense that he had given the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl to him. Even if someone had spied his name and seen the Heavenly Fate Misfortune Pearl, it would still be within the realm of reason. This way, everyone attending the gathering would be implicated. If a major danger arose, Xing or Dan Yuan would undoubtedly intervene. Standing on the balcony, Jiang Hao exhaled a breath of relief. Everything was going relatively smoothly, but how long it would remain stable was uncertain. For now, he needed to focus on ascending to the Soul Ascension Realm. Only 10 more days remained. Soul Ascension Realm was right within reach. In a sect near the sea in the southern region, Shu Bai woke up from his meditation. He stepped out of his room and arrived at the place where the fallen immortal clan members were imprisoned. Shu Bai, just kill us. You won't get any information from us. Bu Kang shouted. Is that so? Shu Bai asked softly. Any last wishes? Chapter 404, Chapter 404, Spiritual Fire. Chapter 404, Spiritual Fire. Jiang Hao looked at his interface. He still lacked a bit of cultivation and lifeblood. He then headed to the Spirit Herb Garden. If he could find another blue bubble, he would be able to advance tonight. Cheng Cho, who was standing at the entrance of the Spirit Herb Garden, immediately rushed over to report the situation. The main issue is with the outer sect. The Spirit Herb Garden was just recently opened. The quality of the soil is unstable, and some of the spirit herbs are showing signs of withering. Although the disciples of the Candlelight Pill Pavilion have examined it, their own problems are even greater. Senior Sister Miao isn't free, so we're not sure who to ask for help. Jiang Hao walked all the way to the blue bubbles. After confirming that both lifeblood and cultivation were full, Jiang Hao sighed in relief. It seemed that there was no need to wait any longer. He could attempt to advance tonight. After advancing, he could finally sell the talismans he had. No more piling up of tasks. Lately, he had been using up talismans, and he had less than 1,000 spirit stones left. He had used mostly the Heaven Secrets 1, Lid Den talismans and the Breath Concealment talisman. The materials were expensive, and the talismans couldn't be sold. Other than those that are withering, how are the other spirit herbs? Jiang Hao asked. Even if he was going to advance tonight, he still needed to handle the matters of the spirit herb garden. He couldn't rush things. Not very well. Cheng Cho shook his head. The spiritual energy there is insufficient, and the land can't be compared to a normal spirit herb garden. It's mainly because it's too large. The resources are spread thin after distribution, and the effects are slow. Jiang Hao nodded. This was a situation he had no control over. However, as long as there were more spirit herbs, the environment there could be changed. Once they persisted through this phase, they would enter a bountiful phase. As for the withering of the spirit herbs, it naturally needed attention. After all, many of them belonged to him. Even if they weren't his, too much withering could cause trouble. Everything would be dealt with calmly so that the seniors weren't alarmed. Having understood the surrounding situation, Jiang Hao didn't think much about it. This was his responsibility, but he had lived through similar situations in all these years. Compared to the other things he had faced, this was ordinary. Oh, by the way, Cheng Cho hesitated. Although the rumors aren't increasing in recent days, they are deeply rooted. They feel that you have accepted the Bloodwish path. Even the ordinary people are wary of you. Are they doing their tasks properly? Jiang Hao asked. Yes. Cheng Cho nodded. That's good. Don't worry about it, Jiang Hao said. There was nothing inherently wrong with pursuing the Bloodwish path. It not only made him seem more like a disciple of the demonic sect, but it also provided him with a reason for advancement. Now, his excuse for advancement didn't have to depend solely on fortuitous encounters. People would assume the Bloodwish path played a part in it as well. Everything was going smoothly, except Han Ming. He still had to reach the peak of the Foundation establishment realm. When that time came, he would wait a bit longer before displaying his cultivation at the Golden Core realm. Once he achieved the Golden Core realm, his status in the Heavenly Note sect would rise. Under his watch, the Spirit Herb Garden wouldn't encounter issues, and it would facilitate his cultivation. The only trouble was whether he could continue guarding the Spirit Herb Garden. When it was evening, Jiang Hao returned to his courtyard. After making sure that everything was all right, he attempted to advance to the next realm. He had used the last of his spirit stones to purchase an array formation to prevent any unpleasant surprises. He also activated some Heaven Secrets hidden talismans around his house. Only then did he close his eyes and begin to cultivate. His lifeblood and cultivation were extracted. Boundless spiritual energy surged around him. The Hong Meng Heart Sutra circulated, and immediately, a purple aura enveloped him. Advancement was an extremely perilous process. Jiang Hao didn't dare to be distracted. At this moment, he felt the spiritual energy surging toward his primordial spirit. For a moment, it felt like the peak of the primordial spirit realm was being consumed by flames. Intense pain spread through his body. The burning sensation covered his entire being. Amidst the burning, Jiang Hao felt a light appear between his eyebrows. This was a divine ability of the primordial spirit called the Divine Might. The Divine Might was tempered by the flames of the primordial spirit. At that moment, Jiang Hao felt that his spirit was becoming increasingly pure and condensed. Under the flame of the primordial spirit, his lifeblood was also ignited. It tempered his body. Only by doing so could he support a powerful primordial spirit and unleash his full strength. This tempering process lasted for 3 days. At dawn, the purple energy gradually dissipated, and Jiang Hao's body appeared within the purple aura. When the purple aura completely dissipated, he opened his eyes. An inexplicable pressure emerged around him, and an intangible flame seemed capable of igniting everything around him. It was the spiritual flame of divine ability. This divine ability is quite powerful. After his advancement, Jiang Hao could perceive that the most significant change this time was in his divine ability. Previously, divine might could protect his primordial spirit and impose pressure on others. Now, his divine might was like a flame that could ignite with his consciousness. Those with weaker strength would experience unbearable suffering. If the flame wasn't extinguished, the agony wouldn't stop. Moreover, he could sense the power of a refined spirit. What was previously an intangible primordial spirit had now become solid, robust, and colossal. It could easily overpower the primordial spirit. Indeed, the process of refining the soul was terrifying. His former self was so weak compared to his current self. A short while later, he began absorbing the remaining cultivation to refine his realm. During the night, he made some changes to his backup treasures. For instance, the 9 Heavens Battle Armor set. The set hadn't been activated fully yet because his cultivation had been weak. Now, he could fully make use of its potential. The moon slaying and mountain suppression techniques in his wrist guards needed to be replaced as well. Jiang Hao also needed to modify the reappearance of hidden spirit between his brows. At noon, he once again reached his peak. Afterward, he went to the courtyard to water the heavenly fragrance Dao flowers. This time, he needed to see how long it would take for the bubbles to appear. After he was done with his advancement, everything began to return to normal. During the day, he tended to the spirit herb garden. At night, he meditated and examined himself. He had only just advanced, and he needed time to adapt to his current power and strength. At 28 years old, he was at the soul ascension realm. He felt as though the entire sect was no match for him. It was easy to entertain thoughts like that which would lead him astray. The future was promising, so he felt that he had become invincible. Once such thinking became a habit, it would be hard to acknowledge one's flaws. One would feel as though their arrogance was just a natural state of being. That was the most terrifying thing. He needed to calm himself. It would be best if he spoke as little as possible during the next few days. Even 5 days later, no bubbles appeared near the heavenly fragrance Dao flowers. There was none on the 6th day too. On the 7th day, 2 blue bubbles appeared. An extra 2 days, but that's okay. That meant 1 cultivation point in 7 days. Around 4 each month. 52 in a year. 2 years would be needed for the next advancement. It's slower than before. It's a pity that Shenyuan Tai's flower won't be here for long, or else I could get blue bubbles from it too. But it might take 20 years to advance beyond the soul ascension realm. I was already quite fast in my advancement. Moreover, in a few more years, the immortal peach tree might become a divine tree. By then, he might get more blue bubbles. This would further increase his speed. He might advance in 1 year instead of 2. He just needed to wait for the immortal peach tree's next incarnation. The future held promise. Chapter 405. Chapter 405. Name list for the trip to the Bright Moon sect. Chapter 405. Name list for the trip to the Bright Moon sect. In early June, Jiang Hao stood before the peach tree and noticed that it had started to flower and bear fruit again. Moreover, the weather had become slightly hotter. The heat would become more apparent in the summer, but it was hard to feel it within the sect during the winter. He appraised the peach tree and found that it still needed 3 more incarnations to become a divine tree. It seems becoming a divine tree will take another decade or so. It's alright, but I'm afraid something unexpected might happen during that time. After that, Jiang Hao woke the spirit beast, and they headed to the spirit herb garden. How are Chu Chuan and the others? Jiang Hao asked. Things had settled down now, and he finally had the time to pay attention to their progress. The matter with the heavenly fate misfortune pearl might bring a lot of trouble. Fortunately, he was prepared and didn't need to worry too much. He needed to wait to see how the others would respond. However, He needed to find a way to attend the Bright Moon Sect's Tao conference. He hoped it wouldn't ruin the impression he left at the last gathering. Chu Chuan has advanced to the 8th stage of the lifeblood refinement realm, said the spirit beast. So quickly? Jiang Hao was surprised. Yesterday, he told us that he had become an inner sect disciple. He said he's different now and told Xiao Li to bring it on. Then what? Well, he's getting his teeth fixed. Jiang Hao smiled. While Xiao Li was also at the 8th stage of the lifeblood refinement realm, she was far from an ordinary disciple in the same realm. However, Chu Chuan's progress was remarkable. Has anyone been teaching Xiao Li lately? Jiang Hao asked. She often goes to that stern person's house, and she insists on taking me along. But every time, she falls asleep. The spirit beast sighed. Master, that person shows no respect for me. He is my master, said Jiang Hao. Oh, then I should show him a little respect, said the spirit beast. Is Xiao Li willing to go there? Jiang Hao asked. Not very, the beast said. Why? It's a bit far from the cafeteria. Jiang Hao nodded. He decided to have Cheng Chou inform Xiao Li that if she could advance to the 9th stage soon, then she might make it to the Foundation Establishment realm by the end of the year. That way, she won't have to keep listening to the teaching every day. What about Lin Ji? Jiang Hao asked. Very stable, said the spirit beast. Under the guidance of me, Lord Beast, he can now take a hit without being injured. How's his cultivation? Jiang Hao asked. Still at the 1st stage of the lifeblood refinement realm. Many people in the sect feel that he's a waste of resources. Some are clamoring to ask seniors to intervene or report directly to the law enforcement hall, the spirit beast said. Jiang Hao wasn't concerned. His master had allowed Lin Ji to stay. Which inner disciple would dare to go against the cliff master's orders? Even true disciples wouldn't dare to challenge the master's decision. As for the law enforcement hall, they had no authority over the different branches. This was the cliff of broken hearts' internal matter. It was beyond the jurisdiction of the law enforcement hall. They wouldn't step in until a disciple was physically harmed. At what stage is he at for the Sun-Moon lifeblood refinement cultivation technique? Jiang Hao asked. At the 5th stage. Although he feels more star energy entering his body, his cultivation realm hasn't increased much, said the spirit beast. Jiang Hao nodded. It seemed that the spirit beast hadn't been slacking off in its duties. On the contrary, it seemed to enjoy it. When they arrived at the spirit herb garden, a communication talisman appeared before them. It seemed the cliff master wanted Jiang Hao to meet him. What's the matter this time? Jiang Hao didn't hesitate. He rushed over immediately. He found Han Ming, Mu Qi, Xiao Li, and Ning Xian, along with a few other rarely-seen seniors. Senior brother Jiang. Xiao Li rushed over to him. Jiang Hao introduced her to the others one by one. He led her to Han Ming last. You can call him Senior Brother Han, Jiang Hao said. Senior Brother Han, hello, Xiao Li said in greeting. Han Ming looked at her. In the future, if you have any questions about cultivation, you can ask me. Although my strength is average, I can still offer some guidance. As for combat tips, I can help you much better in that aspect. Senior Brother Jiang doesn't have much combat experience. Indeed, Junior Brother Han's strength and abilities are beyond doubt, Jiang Hao said with a smile. Xiao Li nodded. She was thinking about going to the spirit herb garden when she was done here. Cheng Chou had gone out of the sect. He promised her he would bring her some delicious food. After a short while, they all entered Ku Wu Chang's courtyard. Ku Wu Chang got straight to the point. The sect has already decided. In a few months, we will be going to the Bright Moon sect. As I will be leading the team this time, I can take a few more people with me. From Lifeblood Refinement Realm, I'm taking Xiao Li along. From Foundation Establishment Realm, Jiang Hao. From Golden Core Realm, Mu Qi and Ju Wu. And from Primordial Spirit Realm, Ning Xian and Tian Li. Be prepared. We might depart at any time in the coming months. Jiang Hao was surprised. This was different from what he had expected. Why isn't senior brother Han included? Xiao Li asked softly. Because he's too qualified, Mu Qi said with a smile. Oh. Little Li nodded. Senior brother Han does seem really amazing. She was often at the spirit herb garden. Miao Tinglian and Mu Qi also visited the garden frequently. They knew Han Ming quite well. Han Ming smiled and felt proud of himself when he heard their praises. Jiang Hao saw it now. Han Ming, at 27, was fundamentally still the same as he was years ago. If someone complimented and acknowledged him, he became approachable. But why was he chosen to go along? That left him completely puzzled. This journey wouldn't just take a few months. How would the law enforcement hall agree to it? And it wasn't part of his plan. Xiao Li didn't mind. It would be a chance for her to go out and explore. Though the others were surprised, seeing Jiang Hao and Xiao Li arrive had prepared them mentally. They didn't say much. After all, most of them were going because their master was leading them. Ku Wu Chang dismissed them after that. Jiang Hao followed the seniors and left. However, he returned to his master's house after a while again. Do you need something? Asked Ku Wu Chang. He wasn't surprised to see Jiang Hao back here. Master, can I request to give my spot to someone else? Asked Jiang Hao. To whom? Asked Ku Wu Chang. Junior brother Chu Chuan, he said. Chu Chuan? Asked Ku Wu Chang with a frown. Why don't you want to go? There's quite a bit of work in the spirit herb garden, and I might need to stay behind to take care of it. Ku Wu Chang looked at Jiang Hao. He was silent for a long while, then he said, all right. Jiang Hao thanked him and left. He felt that his master could remove his name from the law enforcement hall's suspect list. However, he felt that it was safer for him to be on the suspect list and inside the sect. He had offended too many people. If not for the list, the sect would have sent him on various missions. It would have been dangerous for him. 3 days later, the list of names for the trip to the Bright Moon sect was revealed. Many were chosen from the Cliff of Broken Hearts. From the Lifeblood Refinement realm, the cliff had 2 names. One was Xiao Li and the other was Chu Chuan. Both had recently become inner sect disciples. And both were quite young. Senior brother Jiang, are you not coming with us? Xiao Li asked with concern. Jiang Hao nodded. Take the beast with you. Really? Xiao Li smiled. Master, have you finally discovered my potential? Asked the spirit beast. Get used to the outside world and evaluate Chu Chuan's progress on the way. I also need you to do something important. What is it, Master? The spirit beast asked. When you arrive at the Bright Moon sect, find a place and activate the ring like I taught you, said Jiang Hao. Chapter 406, Chapter 406, Mocked Again. Chapter 406, Mocked Again. Before the names were announced, Jiang Hao's intention was for the spirit beast to take Chu Chuan to the eastern region. However, it was too dangerous. So, he planned for Xiao Li to go to the master and request to go to the Bright Moon sect, and then take Chu Chuan along. Xiao Li was no ordinary disciple. She was the next true disciple. The plan was to wait for Xiao Li to reach the Foundation Establishment realm. But the name list was announced faster than expected. And he was on it too. It would be fine for Xiao Li to go, but he absolutely couldn't. At least not now when he had attracted the attention of Xing. Going to the Bright Moon sect was like throwing oneself into a trap. Furthermore, his plan would be severely restricted. Also, if he gained any merit on the trip, it would be difficult to make it to the law enforcement hall's suspect list in the future. A few of the spies he knew had further use. There was no need to expose them yet. It was already enough for Xiao Li to go. As for Chu Chuan, he always wanted to visit the Bright Moon sect. He would go on his own even if not with the team. The worst-case scenario would be letting the spirit beast accompany him there. With enough spirit stones, magical treasures, and the spirit beast, the trip would be safe. This saved him a lot of trouble, but he still had to give them some spirit stones for emergencies. And talismans too. When going to the eastern region, these things might not be very useful, but it's always good to have them at hand. After teaching the beast how to use the rings, he let it play by itself. However, He instructed the beast that it needed to activate the ring outside the sect. It might not be possible to use it within. It was safer outside. Activating it inside the Bright Moon sect was too dangerous. After all, it was a genuine immortal sect. Who could if experts were constantly inspecting the surroundings for such behaviors? If they were discovered, there would be no chance to escape. "Why aren't you going, junior brother Jiang?" asked Miao Tinglian curiously. "There's a lot to do in the spirit herb garden," Jiang Hao said helplessly. "It's just some outer sect matters. But I don't have the time to help you guys anymore. The sect's mission this time is to investigate the Heavenly Saint sect. Don't they know what I did there in the past?" Miao Tinglian said indignantly. "Perhaps they do know, which is why they sent you." Jiang Hao didn't dare say it aloud. "Forget it. I'm going to the law enforcement hall to get some people." With that, Miao Tinglian turned and left. Watching her leave, Jiang Hao decided to go to the outer sect. He needed to see what was going on with the withered spirit herbs. When he arrived at the outer sect, he found many people discussing the upcoming trip to the Bright Moon sect. They seemed envious of people who were getting the chance to go there. Some even thought that after they became inner sect disciples, they might have a chance to go next time. Jiang Hao just listened quietly. Opportunities could sometimes be so unbelievable. Taking a step forward might lead to life-changing things. One would either be soaring to the heavens or plummeting to the abyss. This applied to his situation with the Bright Moon sect as well. However, he chose to stay put. He didn't need more opportunities. Arriving at the outer sect spirit herb garden, he saw both Foundation Establishment realm cultivators and Lifeblood Refinement realm cultivators all over the place. Sometimes Jiang Hao wondered why he, a Soul Ascension realm cultivator, was mingling with them. One of the top disciples had a perfect primordial spirit realm. Jiang Hao could compete for the 9th top disciple position. He caught himself. This kind of thinking would bring him down. Looking down on anyone might bring bitter consequences. Others were careless in their regard for him and attacked him recklessly. If he acted the same way, he might very well end up the way others had. Pushing aside unnecessary thoughts, Jiang Hao arrived at the spirit herb garden. Nowadays, numerous spirit herbs were cultivated here. The spiritual energy was denser, but the soil was still unsuitable. It took a long time for cultivation. "Senior brother Jiang," said one of the outer sect disciples in greeting. Jiang Hao nodded in acknowledgement. He looked around and found that most spirit herbs had withered. After inspecting it, he realized it was a common problem. The soil lacked nutrients, and the surrounding spiritual energy was insufficient. A vial of spirit liquid could solve the issue. But there were so many spirit herbs here. One vial per herb would consume an enormous amount. After hesitating, Jiang Hao said, "Bury all the withered herbs in the spirit field as nourishment." This surprised the others, but they still obeyed him. As he watched them bury the spirit herbs one by one, Jiang Hao felt like a pile of spirit stones was slipping away from him. However, it couldn't be helped. The soil here couldn't support so many spirit herbs. Sacrificing the ones that were about to wither so others with stronger vitality could survive was inevitable. Letting go now would prevent even greater loss. Many understood this principle, but few had the courage to make this decision. Cheng Chou didn't dare, nor did the other disciples. Jiang Hao did it. It wasn't just about taking a chance with the seniors. He had his own reasons. Jiang Hao asked some questions about the situation. He wanted to find out whether anyone had come here to influence them. The answer he received was no. The person in charge of the Candlelight Pill Pavilion still treated them well. Jiang Hao took a look around. It was still the same senior as before. He had been in charge all this time. Jiang Hao took his leave after watching them bury the spirit herbs. On the way, he heard some people whisper about him. Is that the one from the Cliff of Broken Hearts who cultivates the blood wish path? Is he kind to others, or is it all for their blood? Perhaps, but I heard the blood wish path is bloody. I was lucky enough to have seen what it is about. It was truly gruesome. That senior looks gentle and righteous, but I never expected him to be so cruel. Even if you see a kind and gentle senior in this sect, you still have to be cautious. We've seen plenty of this type of people in our sect. It's just that it's the first time it feels so shocking. I used to think he was a kind person. I really envied those people who worked under him, but now, I should consider myself fortunate not to be among them. Jiang Hao didn't pay them any mind. They were just talking behind his back, after all. And once the blood wish path was established, there was nothing wrong with it. In the beginning, he had been used by various people precisely because he was a good person. Senior sister Yun Ruo had been like that too, as were some others in the 100 Bones forest. Now, they would weigh things carefully. As for his reputation, after 100 years, or 1,000 years, or even 10,000 years later, what would it matter? If he lived long, everything would become distant memories. The next day, after dealing with the spirit herbs, Jiang Hao went to set up a stall to sell talismans. The spirit beast and the others were heading out, so he needed to prepare some things for them, and that required spirit stones. Just as Jiang Hao had set up his stall, a senior in the middle stage of the Golden Core realm approached him. "Hey, it's been a couple of years since we last met. You seem to have advanced to the peak of the Foundation Establishment realm. Does that mean you already know how to draw the 6 Golden Core talismans?" Duan Guan sneered. Jiang Hao looked at the senior in front of him. "Senior brother, you must be joking. I still can't." Indeed, he couldn't. "You still can't do that. It's really surprising that you're already at Foundation Establishment realm and yet show no sign of progress," Duan Guan said mockingly. "I suppose you haven't even learned the power manipulation talisman yet?" "I learned it," Jiang Hao said. "Learned it? Then why aren't you selling it? Aren't you just boasting? Even I could say I know how to make them." Duan Guan snorted coldly. "With your attitude, you're practically wasting your talent for talisman making." After saying that, he threw down 3,000 spirit stones and took all of Jiang Hao's talismans. Jiang Hao looked astonished. 3,000? Was this senior really wealthy? Could he possibly be an alchemist as well? In truth, Jiang Hao had quite a few power manipulation talismans, but he just wanted to provoke the senior. Whenever the senior looked pissed, he ended up buying everything. Next time, if he didn't buy his talismans, he could take out the power manipulation talismans. Who would have thought that this senior would inquire about the 6 Golden Core talismans? He hadn't even prepared those. There was indeed nothing he could say. However, it was still surprising that the senior had bought all of Jiang Hao's talismans so unexpectedly. Chapter 407, People Change. Chapter 407, People Change. For the next half-month, Jiang Hao sold talismans. Unfortunately, after senior brother Duan, his sales weren't doing well. He happened to know his name, and it seemed that he was indeed an alchemist. Moreover, his status was not low. Otherwise, with that mouth of his, it would bring him a lot of trouble. In the past half-month, he had only earned a total of 1,500 spirit stones. After that, he sold some ordinary yet valuable items, which were left behind by Yu Xian and by Ji. The total amount of spirit stones he had was 6,235 spirit stones. If it weren't for Duan Guan, his earnings would have been half. Although his words were harsh, he was wealthy and generous. Unfortunately, he didn't encounter such opportunities often. During this month, there had been no news about the heavenly fate misfortune pearl. It seemed that the information hadn't been leaked yet, and he didn't know how long it could be kept hidden. Once Xiao Li and the others headed to the eastern region, he could set up a teleportation formation there. In case there were real problems in the future, he could escape there. However, there were too many experts over there. Once the teleportation formation was taken by someone, it would deactivate, and he wouldn't be able to use it to escape. He would have lost a valuable resource. The sect decided to depart in early September. The heads of the 3 main branches would lead the teams. Those ranches were the Cliff of Broken Hearts, the Heavenly Joy Pavilion, and the Law Enforcement Hall. For a while, Jiang Hao began to understand why his master had asked him to go with them. With the master of the Law Enforcement Hall present, He would naturally be under his surveillance, and he could stay there for as long as needed. As for the master of the Heavenly Joy Pavilion, he couldn't attack him with the other masters around. As long as he performed well and the master was willing to speak for him, he was safe from danger, and he might also be removed from the suspect list of the law enforcement hall. Regrettably, he had declined the offer. His master had intended to lend him a helping hand, but he lacked the determination. Although it was somewhat regrettable, he still hoped to ease the resentment in the heart of the person from Heavenly Joy Pavilion. Only in that way could he be completely safe. Now that person was heading to the Bright Moon sect, and they probably wouldn't return for a year or more. He could feel a bit more at ease. In the afternoon, Jiang Hao sought out Chu Chuan. Before their departure, there were some things he wanted to discuss with him. "Are you going to test me this time?" Chu Chuan asked with excitement. Chu Chuan shouted loudly and attacked. He used fist techniques and spells. He constantly switched between them and did it fast. His awareness was strong, and his attacks were strong. He balanced offense and defense well, and his techniques were quite good. Although there were some flaws, it was quite impressive. After his opponent exhausted his moves, Jiang Hao began to counterattack. Every move struck Chu Chuan's weakest points. He didn't use much force, just enough to let him feel it. After a while, Chu Chuan collapsed to the ground. In the first half of the fight, he felt joy, but now, he only felt pain. It was really tormenting. "Actually, you did quite well. Who taught you those spells and techniques?" Jiang Hao asked curiously. "Lord Beast taught me. Senior brother Cheng gave me some guidance too, and I also figured out some myself," Chu Chuan said as he sat up. Jiang Hao nodded. The beast was taking its job seriously. "Did you come here because of the matter with the Bright Moon sect, Senior brother Jiang?" Chu Chuan was curious. "Yes." Jiang Hao nodded. "There are a few things I need to talk to you about." "Is it to tell me not to tell Chu Jie anything about you?" asked Chu Chuan. Jiang Hao shook his head. "Not really." Chu Chuan looked puzzled. "If not that, then what?" After a moment of silence, Jiang Hao asked, "How long have you been in the sect?" 6 years, Chu Chuan said. "How many years apart were you and Chu Jie when you parted ways?" Jiang Hao asked again. "I was 10 years old, and Chu Jie was 9. Chu Chuan was puzzled for a moment. "Do you know what kind of sect the Bright Moon sect is?" "It is extremely powerful." "Yes, extremely powerful. One of the strongest sects there is. And Chu Jie is a disciple of that sect. She is not an ordinary disciple, but one of the gifted ones." Jiang Hao lowered his head. 6 years ago, you were just children and living your ordinary lives. But from the moment she entered the Bright Moon sect, she became a treasure of that sect. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Chu Chuan shook his head. "I don't understand." During these 6 years, Chu Jie was far from the servant girl you knew. She is now the most prominent disciple of the Bright Moon sect. She is admired and respected by thousands of people. Her insights and perspectives will undergo drastic changes in such an environment. Jiang Hao looked at Chu Chuan. "Do you mean that Chu Jie might have changed?" Chu Chuan asked. "Given the circumstances, she probably hasn't," Jiang Hao said. "She sent Fang Jin to look for you, after all. However, her unintentional words or actions might make you realize the gap between you two. You need to accept that, even if it isn't her intention. Moreover, she's in the Bright Moon sect. Even though it is an immortal sect, there is no lack of jealousy among people. If someone like Chu Jie is close to you, it will invite prejudice and malice. You need to be able to handle that." "How should I handle it?" Chu Chuan was completely clueless. "Hide your true abilities, act when the time is right, see through people's faults without making a fuss, sense deception without getting angry, be as inscrutable as water, and as steady as a mountain," said Jiang Hao. "Always. Keep your mind calm, and let it guide your actions." Chu Chuan might not be crushed by any hardships, but he might attract trouble and meet an early demise. Teaching him when to advance and when to retreat would prevent him from getting into trouble. He had to grow up eventually. Although this was the demonic sect, Xiao Li, and the beast made sure to provide guidance for Chu Chuan. There were benefits, but also drawbacks. He didn't understand the complexities of human emotions and the cunning of the human heart. Even if he reached 18 by the time he entered the Bright Moon sect, he still wouldn't understand many things. And his unwillingness to comply might invite trouble, which could lead to fatal consequences. This restraint might be a good way for him to become stronger, but it could also easily ruin him. Anger and humiliation might make him stronger, but does he want to live his whole life in that kind of anger? Acting when the time is right and resolving everything with the force of thunder while trying to make others let go of their grievances toward them was the right thing to do. When Jiang Hao left, Chu Chuan was already back to practicing his moves. No setback could break him. Otherwise, Jiang Hao wouldn't have said so much. The next day, Jiang Hao saw Liu Xingchen. He was momentarily stunned when he saw that Liu Xingchen was at the late stage of the primordial spirit realm. What happened? He used the daily appraisal. Farewell. Jiang Hao was surprised. Is he going back? He also felt a bit disappointed. Liu Xingchen's presence had indeed been of tremendous help to him. Even though his departure wouldn't have a huge impact, it would certainly be inconvenient for Jiang Hao. However, the fact that the three of the remnant souls had never taken action was truly disappointing. Perhaps the three were wary of each other, and no one dared to make the first move. Unfortunately, it seemed he wouldn't be able to see what happens next. Chapter 408, Chapter 408, Finally Leaving. Chapter 408, Finally Leaving. Junior brother Jiang, haven't seen you for so long. Liu Xingchen smiled. It's been a while, senior brother Liu, Jiang Hao said. Indeed, they hadn't seen each other for quite some time. The law enforcement hall has been quite busy lately, and I've been swamped by work. Fortunately, that's over now, but new tasks have come up, Liu Xingchen said helplessly. New tasks? Jiang Hao was curious. This task might involve leaving the sect. Yes. Liu Xingchen walked alongside Jiang Hao. Junior brother Jiang, you know about the Bright Moon sect's Dao conference, right? Jiang Hao nodded. Did a lot of people leave on that trip? Yes. Quite a few of us from the law enforcement hall are going too. I happen to be among them. Unlike the others, we need to check the route first, so we have to leave earlier. Jiang Hao was taken aback. He is going to the Bright Moon sect. Quickly, he realized there wasn't much difference. The Clear Sky School was also located in the eastern region. This trip will take quite a while. I won't be able to come back in 1 to 2 years. I wonder what might happen within the sect during that time. Liu Xingchen sighed. That long? Jiang Hao also felt that was too long. With Liu Xingchen not around, he wouldn't have access to the information about the law enforcement hall. He was familiar only with Liu Xingchen. Moreover, they could conveniently use each other without any pressure since they were both undercover. Both had benefited without any trouble. It takes at least 2 years round trip, and the Dao conference lasts from 3 months to half a year, Liu Xingchen said. What do you think, junior brother Jiang? 3 to 4 years. Jiang Hao had thought about this, but he still felt that it was quite a long time. Fortunately, he wasn't going. 3 or 4 years would have been wasted. In 4 years, he could advance twice. Are you setting off in a few days, senior brother Liu? Jiang Hao asked. Yes. Liu Xingchen nodded. I heard that you got the chance to go too, but you chose not to. It's too dangerous outside for me, Jiang Hao said. You do tend to stand out with your accomplishments. Liu Xingchen chuckled. But your current situation isn't as perilous as it seems. I heard that the person from the Sunset Immortal sect gave up because they couldn't wait for you to leave the sect any longer. Gave up? Jiang Hao was surprised. Only 8 years had passed since the incident. The threat from the Sunset Immortal sect was gone. Now, only the Heavenly Saint sect remained. The Heavenly Saint sect was getting wiped out. So, they probably won't linger in the sect for long. For a moment, he felt much safer. What remained were only the Heavenly Joy Pavilion and the Fallen Immortal clan. The Fallen Immortal clan had spied on him once. If they were to do it again, the matter of the heavenly fate misfortune pearl would be discovered. By then, he wouldn't be able to cultivate with peace of mind. However, the people from Sunset Immortal sect had only temporarily given Yude. Once they've Aeued in front of him again, conflicts would still arise. As for the Heavenly Saint sect, they hadn't given up altogether. It was just that they couldn't approach him yet. I should wait for the right time. 100 years from now, I'll go find them and ask them to let go of past grievances. If 100 years isn't enough, then 1,000. Someday, they'll listen to me. Oh, it's been several years. There are so many matters in the cultivation world. Who remembers things that don't bring benefits? 8 years is enough time for a person to let go of their recklessness and assess the situation. It's not that difficult, Liu Xingchen said. Perhaps one day, junior brother Jiang, the sect will have internal conflicts. Continuing to wait and consume resources might not be as worthwhile as pursuing other avenues. Jiang Hao nodded. It would be best if things unfolded that way. However, regarding the heavenly fragrance Dao flower, they probably wouldn't give up. For example, senior sister Ming Yi was always hovering over him. She was still executing her plan. 8 years had passed, and she occasionally appeared to help him in the garden and disappeared again. Was she planning something big? Before Liu Xingchen left, he told Jiang Hao that the law enforcement hall had mentioned him again. Jiang Hao could only smile politely. He didn't want to give spirit stones to the law enforcement hall, but he might not have a choice. When the Dao conference began, he would have to go there, and it wasn't certain how much time that would take. But 3 months should be enough. Arriving at the spirit herb garden, Jiang Hao began guiding Cheng Chou in his cultivation. Cheng Chou hadn't experienced any fortuitous encounters, nor did he possess any extraordinary talent. Luckily, he was willing to work hard and didn't waste his time. With Jiang Hao's guidance, he was progressing at a reasonable pace. As for how far he could go, Jiang Hao couldn't be sure. However, the Golden Core realm was definitely within his reach. It would be much more difficult to achieve beyond that realm. 2 months later, in early September, Jiang Hao gave the spirit beast 3,000 spirit stones. He hesitated for a moment, and then he gave 1,000 spirit stones to Xiao Li. A total of 4,000 spirit stones. Resources for the sect gathered over 9 years of foundation establishment realm would amount to that much. It seemed like a lot, but it would be scarce once they reached the eastern region. Looking at Chu Chuan, Jiang Hao sighed. After all, they were going to meet geniuses there. It would be embarrassing to not have enough spirit stones. Jiang Hao gave him 800. Close to 5,000 spirit stones were gone, just like that. He gave them most of what he had earned so far. He also gave them various talismans and pills. If there is danger, let Xiao Li handle it. If there is a dispute, the beast will handle it, said Jiang Hao. Then, what should I do? Chu Chuan asked. 800 spirit stones. Chu Chuan hadn't seen that many spirit stones in his life. He felt like he was floating in the air. Listen to the beast's instructions, Jiang Hao said. Remember to obey the Cliff Master's orders. Don't wander around, and don't cause trouble. Master, leave everything to me. The future of the eastern region will be filled with Lord Beast's legends soon, said the spirit beast. My courtyard is small. There's no room for legendary beasts of the east, Jiang Hao said. Master, you have no sense of humor at all. I was just joking, said the beast with a sigh. That's why you haven't been able to find a mistress, Master. Mistress? Xiao Li looked puzzled. It's your sister-in-law, said the beast. Xiao Li thought for a moment, and she recalled the senior sister she had seen before. I guess so. She wasn't entirely sure. Jiang Hao didn't pay them any further attention but instructed them to wait at the Cliff Master's place. Watching the 3 of them leave, Jiang Hao sighed. He couldn't help feeling worried about them. Chu Chuan possessed an indomitable spirit because of his immortal heart, but aside from that, he wasn't particularly outstanding. Xiao Li could fight and eat but didn't excel in other areas. The beast was quite versatile, but it tended to cause trouble easily. The deceptive creature was anything but reassuring. However, the beast was about to achieve the Gold Core realm. Having a gold core demonic beast around should be safer. Jiang Hao stopped thinking about it and headed to the square outside the sect. There were quite a few people gathered there. This was where they could watch the team leave. Jiang Hao saw a massive sword fly out of the gate. Xiao Li and the others were on the sword. Senior brother Jiang, I'll bring you some delicious food when I come back. Xiao Li waved and shouted from above. Jiang Hao watched them leave without saying anything. With them gone, there would be no leader at the Cliff of Broken Hearts. He hoped no one would cause trouble. Without Xiao Li and the beast, it seemed like there were many more things to worry about. He wouldn't have anyone he could ask about things. The beast was talented in deceiving and hiding its true abilities. It was quite suitable when he had to send it to gather information. It'll have to leave someday, and I'll have to get used to it slowly. Jiang Hao smiled faintly and stopped overthinking. Chapter 409. Chapter 409. Are you trying to drag me down? Chapter 409. Are you trying to drag me down? Returning to the spirit herb garden, Jiang Hao began his peaceful days. He still had 3,000 spirit stones at hand. He didn't know how much it would take for another incarnation of the peach tree, but he wasn't worried for now. Because in a while, he would also head to the eastern region. There were things he had to deal with there. The peach blossom tree still had 2 years left for the next incarnation, so there was time. If time ran short, then he could wait an extra year. There was no rush. After all, both purple and golden bubbles were at 0 right now, so it didn't matter. The next day, Jiang Hao watered the immortal peach tree and the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. He noticed that the peaches were ripening, but Xiao Li wasn't around to eat them. Suddenly, I feel that Xiao Li wasn't completely useless. Shaking his head, Jiang Hao went to the spirit herb garden to start his work. This was a good opportunity to refine his state of mind. His cultivation had now reached the soul ascension realm. Even with the heaven extinction Jiu poison calming him, his state of mind was sometimes unreliable. Tending to herbs and doing ordinary work relieved him. It reminded him to stay humble. Power and spirit stones were both alluring. Only when one's state of mind was aligned with their cultivation realm could one avoid trouble. Every day, Jiang Hao would pick a peach from the tree for breakfast. However, he couldn't finish all the peaches on the tree even if he ate them every day. So, he gave some to Lin Ji and Cheng Chou. Since the beast wasn't around, Jiang Hao occasionally went to guide Lin Ji in his cultivation. He was working hard. Unfortunately, Lin Ji felt hopeless. Over these years, he watched fellow disciples around him gradually improve their cultivation, and each one surpassed him. He lived with the new disciples, but many of them had moved on after advancing, while he still stayed behind. Everyone knew about him. A cultivator who was still at the first stage of the lifeblood refinement realm even after 6 years. He was mocked and bullied by his peers. But what bothered him the most were his 2 friends from the same hometown. They were just like him. They had started as ordinary people, but he remained at the lifeblood refinement realm while they had moved to greater heights. They had become inner sect disciples by now. That night, Lin Ji sat cross-legged on the ground and gazed up at the starry sky. He was confused. Lost in thought. Jiang Hao walked up from behind. It had been 3 months since Xiao Li and the others had left. This was his 3rd time coming to look for Lin Ji. But outside the sect, many ordinary people were striving to get through the winter. Greetings, senior brother Jiang. Lin Ji quickly stood up and bowed. What were you thinking about? Jiang Hao nodded in acknowledgement. I don't really know. Lin Ji lowered his head. Maybe I miss my mother a bit. Are you doubting the path of cultivation because you can't advance? Asked Jiang Hao. No. Lin Ji quickly shook his head. It's just that things feel a bit strange. How can I change my current situation? I don't want to stay in one place forever. Jiang Hao fell silent for a while. There's no need to rush. You're fine for now. Is this really okay? Lin Ji was puzzled. Will I ever achieve something if I don't do anything about my current situation? A gentle breeze blew by as Jiang Hao looked up at the starry sky. His robes gently swayed in the wind. The great Tao is simple. It's unyielding when desireless, and all-encompassing when idle. Lin Ji looked baffled, but he had learned something. Don't rush it. Jiang Hao looked at him. Some people are born brilliant, while others are late bloomers. Lin Ji still didn't quite get it. But Jiang Hao didn't say anything more and started guiding Lin Ji in his cultivation. His learning was decent, and his comprehension was also quite good. Jiang Hao noticed that Lin Ji would always sweep the fallen leaves every day before starting his cultivation. He stopped asking questions and didn't seem perplexed anymore. Lin Ji's path was destined to be different from Chu Chuan's. Although both had been beaten up over the years, their experiences were entirely different. One was beaten up in a test for progress, while the other was bullied. 3 more months passed in this way. In early March, Jiang Hao stood by the riverside and watched the ripples in the water. He closed his eyes and felt the changes in the water's flow. His thoughts seemed to follow the sound of the water. He felt calm and serene. Over the past half-year, he had come to understand something. Peace alone wasn't enough. What was needed was a firm state of mind. It should be full of vitality yet tranquil. The mind should be like a creek where water poured in constantly but didn't cause any huge ripples. Suddenly, he felt someone standing beside him. A faint fragrance wafted up to his nose. Hong Yuye. Her image appeared in Jiang Hao's mind. He opened his eyes and saw a woman dressed in an orange and red gown. She stood beside him and looked at the water. Senior, greetings. Jiang Hao greeted her respectfully. Her sudden appearance had disrupted his state of mind. The heaven extinction Jiu poison had lost its effect. It made his heart restless. What have you been up to lately? Hong Yuye looked at the water's surface. Waiting for news, Jiang Hao said. He had been refining his state of mind during this time, but he had also been paying attention to information about the heavenly fate misfortune pearl. Fortunately, there hadn't been any rumors circulating yet. So, he could maintain his calm for a while longer. As he interacted with the outside world, his future would be exposed to everyone's eyes. It was unavoidable. However, if he surpassed everyone in strength before that happened, everything would work out naturally. Waiting for the clues I mentioned earlier? Hong Yuye turned to look at him. Yes, Jiang Hao said with a brave front. Being stared at like this made him feel stressed. Hong Yuye chuckled and walked into the courtyard. Did the stone tablet have any gathering? She asked. Yes, once. Jiang Hao nodded. Tell me what happened. Hong Yuye sat on a wooden chair in the courtyard. Jiang Hao followed suit and prepared some tea. Things are a bit complicated. Complicated? Hong Yuye sounded intrigued. Jiang Hao didn't plan to hide the matter regarding the heavenly fate misfortune pearl. This was an important issue, and perhaps she could advise him. However, he wasn't in a rush to explain everything. He started from the beginning. He began by talking about the matter with the Saint Bandits. Hong Yuye looked at Jiang Hao. The so-called unique technique involves the blood energy you absorbed from the Saint Bandit. The blood wish path. Your insight is extraordinary, senior, said Jiang Hao in praise. He had only touched the gourd once. Why was the aura still on his body? It should be quite faint. Otherwise, Hong Yuye wouldn't be speaking to him so amiably. Then, Jiang Hao continued with his explanation. He talked about his intention to go to the Bright Moon sect. The appearance of the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment indeed has its benefits. When the time comes, I can go take a look, Hong Yuye said. Senior, are you planning to go as well? Jiang Hao was surprised. If Hong Yuye went along, it would be advantageous for him. First and foremost, his identity wouldn't be easily exposed. However, Hong Yuye didn't answer him. She just gestured for Jiang Hao to continue. After that, Jiang Hao began to talk about his own matters. I informed them that the heavenly fate misfortune pearl is in the hands of Jiang Hao, which I, as Jing handed over, he said. Hong Yuye, who was sipping tea, paused for a moment. Then, she lifted an eyebrow as she looked at him. She placed her teacup down and smiled. Tell me more. Taking a deep breath, Jiang Hao told her that someone had spied on him. Therefore, he had to expose himself as a representative from the Heavenly Note sect. The fictitious Jing would serve as a smokescreen. Furthermore, when danger arose, it could also implicate the Bright Moon sect. Now that you're telling me this, are you also trying to drag me down with you? Hong Yuye asked with her eyebrows raised. Then, she chuckled. Chapter 410, Struck by the Demoness Palm. Chapter 410, Struck by the Demoness Palm. Jiang Hao remained calm at Hong Yuye's questions. He acknowledged that his knowledge was inferior to hers. He knew his plan wasn't flawless, and he could not afford to offend her. Dragging the Bright Moon sect into this was his only option. His success wasn't due to his exceptional skill, but because the Bright Moon sect was in the light while he operated in the shadows. This was the key to his high success rate. These thoughts flashed through Jiang Hao's mind as he shook his head. Senior, you're overthinking. I've never considered that. Hong Yuye's brows slightly furrowed. Is it that you dare not, or you don't want? Jiang Hao knew that it was because he didn't dare to. He had never considered this question before and didn't know how to respond. Therefore, he chose silence. If he talked less, he would make fewer mistakes. Aren't you usually very cautious? Why did you expose yourself this time? Hong Yuye raised her teacup to her lips once again. The leaves on the peach tree rustled softly, and Hong Yuye's dress swayed in the wind. She waited for Jiang Hao's response. After glancing at her briefly, Jiang Hao averted his gaze. Her posture and demeanor always influenced him. It was inevitable. Over the years, due to the influence of the heaven extinction Jiu poison, he had never harbored any thoughts about other women. No matter how beautiful they were, it didn't faze him at all. They were all the same. However, when Hong Yuye appeared, it always affected him. Fortunately, he could suppress these feelings and avoid getting embarrassed. It was my recklessness that led to this outcome, Jiang Hao said. He should have made a better choice in dealing with Jiu Qing. While drinking tea, Hong Yuye gestured for Jiang Hao to continue. That was probably all there was to the gathering. He went into detail regarding the events revolving around the arrangement of the heavenly fate misfortune pearl. If the cultivation world discovered that the pearl was in his possession, they would hand it over to the Bright Moon sect. Why didn't you go to the Bright Moon sect? Hong Yuye curiously asked. Jiang Hao shook his head. If everyone assumes that the heavenly fate, misfortune pearl is in the Bright Moon sect, no one will focus on me. Going to the Bright Moon sect with his current identity wasn't ideal. Besides the troubles it would invite, most of the people in the Bright Moon sect wouldn't trust him. It would be better to stay where he was in case things went south. Seeing that Hong Yuye didn't say much, Jiang Hao continued with his explanations. He talked about the overseas individuals retreating and the anomalies on the small island. Hong Yuye listened without commenting on these matters. That's about it, Jiang Hao said. How long have you been at the gathering? Hong Yuye suddenly asked. 6 or 7 years, Jiang Hao said. His time undercover was almost as long as his time with Chu Chuan. Do you still remember the reason I had you go undercover? Hong Yuye asked while sipping her tea. To find the stone tablet and the mastermind behind it, Jiang Hao said. He still remembered it. However, that investigation had come to a halt. There was no progress on that front. The last time I came, you said you had information. And now? Hong Yuye asked with a smile. I'm still waiting, Jiang Hao said. Hong Yuye let out a laugh. Put down your teacup. Perplexed, Jiang Hao placed the teacup on the table. He suddenly felt a vast aura assaulting him. Bang! Before he could react, he found himself crashing into a wall. His back throbbed with pain. You can continue waiting for your information. I'm not in a hurry, Hong Yuye said nonchalantly while sipping her tea. Jiang Hao sensed that things weren't looking good. He couldn't understand Hong Yuye's intentions. It used to be threats, but now, the approach had changed. This only made him more uneasy. He should quicken the search for the end of all things. A bit of progress could buy him a few more years. How long has Xiao Li been gone? Hong Yuye looked at the peach tree and asked. The peach tree no longer bore fruits now. However, it wouldn't be long before it blossomed and bore fruit again. About half a year, Jiang Hao said. Half a year? Does that mean the Bright Moon Sect's Grand Tao Conference is about to commence? Hong Yuye poured herself another cup of tea and also refilled Jiang Hao's cup. Jiang Hao hesitated to pick up his teacup. He feared she might attack him again. It should still be some time away, Jiang Hao said. Lately, he would occasionally check the encrypted stone tablet, where the three individuals often talked. From that, he learned about the upcoming Grand Tao Conference of the Bright Moon Sect. It was planned for next year in June. That meant there was still over a year for him to go there. 1 year should be sufficient for the Heavenly Note sect to reach the Bright Moon sect. Jiang Hao's concern was whether Chu Chuan could achieve the Foundation Establishment realm before they arrived. If he was on the brink of advancement, there were Foundation Establishment pills with the beast. Although his master might give them to him, Chu Chuan's growth would be observed throughout the journey. Despite his ordinary talent, his speed of advancement and his unyielding spirit were definitely commendable. These traits warranted a Foundation Establishment pill as a reward. It seems you'll be going there soon as well. Hong Yuye beckoned Jiang Hao with a wave of her hand. Jiang Hao recalled making the same gesture in the Lawless Tower. He now understood how the Heavenly King and the others had felt. However, he couldn't afford to ignore her. He could only move forward slightly. At this moment, Hong Yuye's palm rested gently on his chest. Jiang Hao could hear his own heartbeat. With her palm pressed on his chest, there was only an arm's length between them. He could smell her fragrance. Such close contact made him feel concerned. Your heartbeat is a bit fast, Hong Yuye said. Recently, my cultivation has improved significantly, and my lifeblood and cultivation have become vigorous. It's natural for my heartbeat to be faster, Jiang Hao said hurriedly. Is that so? Hong Yuye sneered, and then she began to exert some force on her palm. Jiang Hao felt something leave marks on his body. He felt a prick of pain, but it quickly passed. When it was done, Honzhuv withdrew her hand and looked at him. Look at your chest. Jiang Hao saw a red palm print on his chest, with crimson lines spreading around it. What is this? Jiang Hao asked in surprise. Do you want to learn it? Hong Yuye gestured for Jiang Hao to make tea. Unknowingly, they had already finished a whole pot. Try a different kind of tea this time, she said. Jiang Hao could only take out Snow Queen spring tea. It was worth 50 spirit stones. The one they had previously was the 1,000-flower snow tea, which cost 200 spirit stones per unit. It seemed he had to go buy some tea leaves again. Naturally, he couldn't improve his status, or else he wouldn't be able to afford it within a few years. He brewed a fresh batch of tea. Does this technique have to be used like it was just now? More or less, Hong Yuye said while sipping her tea. Jiang Hao looked at the woman before him. However, her eyes turned icy, and he lowered his head involuntarily. What were you just thinking about? Hong Yuye suddenly asked. I was thinking that I probably won't be able to learn this technique, Jiang Hao said reluctantly. He still didn't understand the purpose of this technique. Later, he could appraise it. He wanted to see what kind of palm technique was involved, so he could understand his situation better. Chapter 411, Chapter 411, a palm technique used only by couples. Chapter 411, a palm technique used only by couples. Hong Yuye got up. She didn't seem to mind Jiang Hao's mouthful of lies. She walked all the way to the hall and went up to the second floor. Finally, she arrived at Jiang Hao's table and gazed at the talisman-making tools. Draw a talisman, she said. I want to see how you do it. Jiang Hao followed her without thinking much and started making the talisman. It was the more challenging 10,000 swords talisman. After days of practice, he was different from before. His strokes were balanced and forceful. Each stroke was distinctive and imbued with power. The whole process was as smooth as flowing water. When he finished, Hong Yuye took the talisman to inspect it. She then moved to the balcony. How long has it been since you slept? She asked. Jiang Hao was surprised at the question. Had he been poisoned again without his knowledge? Considering the dense spiritual energy in the courtyard, he felt that he might have been poisoned in some other way. It's been a while, Jiang Hao said. Hong Yuye turned to look at him. Single-mindedly pursuing something can easily damage your lifeblood. Jiang Hao was taken aback. At this moment, Hong Yuye began to fade. You've been serving me watery tea for a long time. It's still tneen same next time, come drink at my place, Hong Yuye said mockingly. Oh, she then completely vanished. Jiang Hao didn't even know where Hong Yuye lived. But he knew going there would be dangerous. He understood all of this, but what about my talisman? He began adjusting his state. Damage of the lifeblood? He hadn't noticed that. Perhaps he should try sleeping. Hong Yuye wouldn't harm him. At least not yet. He had enough value even if he was weak. If she wanted to kill him, she wouldn't have let him thrive this long. He trusted Hong Yuye more than others. However, as he grew stronger, everything would become complicated. He needed to keep some hidden trump cards. Something that no one else could fathom. Maybe some divine artifact. These things took time to cultivate. There was no need to rush. First, identify the condition and see what kind of palm this is. Jiang Hao looked at the crimson palm on his chest. He was somewhat concerned. He appraised it. Jiang Hao was stunned. It meant that Hong Yuye could only use it on him. If he wanted to learn it, he could only use it on her. Oh, it's similar to the golden rings, but somehow entirely different. Why would Hong Yuye use it on me? Maybe because he would head to the east soon, and she would find it hard to locate him. If he was far enough away, it would be extremely difficult to find him. After all, the distance was too great. Even Hong Yuye's strength might not cross such a distance. Jiang Hao thought that the possibility was very high and kept this in mind for possible use in the future. Of course, he had to guard against deliberate use by her. He needed to make sure of it. This palm technique wouldn't cause any harm to him, so he didn't care much. Instead, he lay down on the bed and tried to sleep. The next day, when he woke up, he felt much more alert. There wasn't a significant change, but his state of mind did seem better. It seems I'll need to sleep occasionally in the future. Daily cultivation and talisman making might not be enough. He went to the courtyard and looked at the surrounding spiritual energy. He had thought that Bai Yi had done something under the cover of night. It's been a while since I last went to take a look. I should go again. That night, Jiang Hao went to the 100 Bones forest. However, he returned quickly. Bai Yi was still in the early stage of the primordial spirit realm, and his injuries were severe. Jiang Hao could only give up for now and continue observing. There was no news from senior brother Qian Chen. The deaths of junior sister Yu Xian and senior brother Bai Ji didn't seem to have caught his attention. No one had come to question him. As for Yi Lian, she had come to meet him once. She apologized to him. It seemed she was still waiting for senior sister Yu Xian's return. Jiang Hao could understand. Yu Xian had truly treated her well, so it was natural for her to be worried. However, such kindness sometimes could turn out to be poison. With a slight misstep, both of them could end up dead from it. Jiang Hao also occasionally stood up for others. He might end up like Yu Xian if he wasn't careful. The only way to avoid this was to focus on cultivating. Apart from these things, there hadn't been any incidents in the spirit herb garden. The whole sect had entered a state of peace. Things had calmed down significantly. Jiang Hao was content with this. Occasionally, he would give some pointers to Cheng Chou. When he had time, he went to observe Lin Ji. Lin Ji was doing good. Spring turned to autumn, and he repeated the same thing every day. Even when bullied, he tried to protect himself with all his might. But when faced with his two good friends, he was always reserved and silent. The gap in their cultivation was too vast. Those two friends of his visited him less frequently. Such a gap would lead to differences. Despite their strong friendship, they couldn't communicate with each other anymore when they were together. Has it changed them? Maybe not entirely. They were just different people heading down different paths in life. The further they go, the harder it would be to communicate with each other. One doesn't understand the world of higher realms, while the other can't grasp the hardships of lower realms. Lin Ji might not be handling things perfectly, but he was still persevering. He is indeed impressive, Jiang Hao muttered in praise as he looked from afar. Half a year had passed, and while the other hadn't made much progress in cultivation, his heart had steadied significantly. He practiced every day without pause and without losing his determination. He waited patiently. He would soon break out of the cocoon like a butterfly. Though he couldn't see hope yet, he hadn't given up and was no longer anxious. It was already September. Almost a year had passed since Xiao Li and the others had left. Jiang Hao had spent the year peacefully as well. In a few more months, Xiao Li and the others would arrive at the Bright Moon sect. He would go to see them when that time came. I wonder if there's enough time for another advancement. He looked at his interface. I'm nearly 30 years old. Halfway to achieving my cultivation. After that, he headed to the spirit herb garden to attend to the spirit herbs. However, as soon as he arrived, a man approached him. Senior brother Jiang. Ah. Who are you, junior brother? Jiang Hao frowned. The man's aura was chaotic, yet there were signs of a breakthrough. He was at the late stage of the Foundation establishment realm. His aura had a faint scent of blood. This person wasn't normal. It wasn't about his identity but the cultivation technique he practiced. I apologize for troubling you, senior brother Jiang. I am Pei Yuan, an inner sect disciple of the Flowing Waterfall. I have come to seek your advice on a few problems relating to my cultivation. He even took out 50 spirit stones. They were quite valuable. Cultivation problems? Jiang Hao didn't accept the spirit stones just yet. Yes, I wish to inquire about the blood wish path. It's quite rare, so I have no choice but to trouble you with my doubts, Pei Yuan said. Jiang Hao was taken aback. He had never expected such a thing to happen. Chapter 412, if he couldn't learn it, then others shouldn't either. Chapter 412, if he couldn't learn it, then others shouldn't either. Looking at the junior, Jiang Hao was unsure how to proceed. Blood wish path. He had considered the various problems this rumor brought him, but he had never anticipated that someone would come to ask about how to cultivate it. He had never even seen the cultivation method of the blood wish path. He only knew that the early stages were extremely cruel, especially the refining of the blood wish gourd. It was abhorrent. To walk this path, one had to trample countless lives. Even if one succeeded, their aura would be unstable. It was far less stable than conventional cultivation methods. The only benefit was faster progress. But the junior brother before him had a strange aura. It seemed his eagerness for quick gains was causing frequent issues. I would be immensely grateful if you could provide me some guidance, senior brother Jiang, Pei Yuan said and added 10 more spirit stones. It's not that I don't want to help you, but I am not knowledgeable about the blood wish path, Jiang Hao said. Rumors were just rumors, after all. The day he admitted to it would be the day he couldn't find any other choice. That day hadn't come yet. But such rumors could influence others. You really don't know? Pei Yuan was surprised. It seemed he had come here for another answer. But many people have said that only you practice the blood wish path, and you do it well, Pei Yuan said. Perhaps they are just rumors, Jiang Hao said. I must take my leave. Jiang Hao walked towards the spirit herb garden to continue tending to the spirit herbs. Pei Yuan stood still for a moment, hesitated, and turned around to leave. He thought that Jiang Hao just didn't want to guide him. The more people practiced the blood wish path, the fiercer the competition would be. So, those who knew it claimed not to. However, he had been unable to make a breakthrough. If he continued like this, it would deplete his lifespan. Originally, it wouldn't be a problem, but several failures had left him in a desperate situation. At the thought of his impending death, his eyes turned hostile. If he couldn't succeed, then others shouldn't either. The blood wish path was extremely crucial and required a lot of effort. The loss of 1 or 2 people wasn't very significant, but what if everyone died? Pei Yuan had a crazy idea. But he wouldn't take extreme actions until the end. In the spirit herb garden, Jiang Hao glanced behind him and looked in the direction where Pei Yuan had left. He frowned. Did his lack of knowledge bring him trouble? Those who cultivated the Bloodwish path were inherently cruel and bloodthirsty. After that, Jiang Hao continued with his own affairs but made some preparations. He just had to wait and see if the bait would be taken. Unfortunately, 2 months passed without any incidents. What surprised him was that he encountered the junior brother again this morning. However, this time, the junior brother's aura was no longer chaotic. It was solid and pure, and the scent of blood was even stronger. Someone experienced had guided him. Jiang Hao knew it. Senior brother Jiang, I came to seek guidance regarding the Bloodwish path again. Pei Yuan smiled. Gone were the previous humility and respect. This was a change brought about by power. Jiang Hao saw this and understood his thoughts to some extent. With someone experienced guiding him, his progress was swift. A promising future awaited him. Thus, he was confident and assured of his success. Jiang Hao had also encountered such situations, but he managed to control himself. Initially, he suppressed such thoughts to prevent any slip-ups, and then he got used to it and treated things calmly. He believed in growing stronger and acting when the time came. Facing his junior brother, Jiang Hao responded as he had before. Junior brother, you've really got the wrong person. I don't know anything about the Bloodwish path. How about we compete to see who reaches the Golden Core realm earlier? Pei Yuan said. His eyes were icy. It was as though anyone who didn't make it fast would die. Jiang Hao appraised him. Who is Yin Wei? Jiang Hao thought that it would be senior brother Chen Chen guiding Pei Yuan, but he didn't expect it to be someone he didn't know at all. However, he didn't make a fuss. He just shook his head and told Pei Yuan that he was far from reaching the Golden Core realm. If this person wanted to act against him, he'd have to wait until after reaching the Golden Core realm. For now, there was no need to pay him any mind. He was more concerned about someone watching him. The appearance of the Bloodwish path had thrown him into a vortex. He was sure that Chen Chen had pushed him out to avoid other influences. Pei Yuan was likely a pawn as well. However, this Yin Wei seemed strange. Jiang Hao didn't think much of it for now. It was already November. The immortal peach tree was once again full of fruits. He kept some and gave the rest to Cheng Chou and Lin Ji. At this moment, Jiang Hao felt the stone tablet vibrate. It was a call for a gathering, and it would be tonight at midnight. There wasn't much time left until Tune. This gathering would probably discuss the upcoming Bright Moon Sect's Tao conference. Late at night, Jiang Hao took out the stone tablet and entered it. There were the same 4 people present with Dan Yuan. Are there any issues with your cultivation? Dan Yuan asked as usual. Once again, no one had any cultivation-related issues. What about the Saint Bandits? Asked Dan Yuan. When I was in the southern region, I heard some rumors about them. But I was in a hurry, so I didn't investigate further. It seems like the influence of the Saint Bandits has started spreading to various regions, Gui said. I haven't heard anything overseas. Liu shook his head. Because of the upcoming Bright Moon Sect's Tao conference, people have been arriving one after another. The members of the Saint Bandits have gone quiet. They are most likely relocating to other areas, Xing said. Jiang Hao remained silent. He hadn't come into contact with members of the Saint Bandits. Moreover, the information was spread out too thin. They only informed everyone about the situation and warned them to be cautious in their approach. It didn't amount to completing the mission. Dan Yuan nodded. He didn't dwell much on the topic. After all, this gathering wasn't for that. Has the date for the Bright Moon Sect's Tao conference been set? Asked Dan Yuan. It should happen in June next year, so there are still 6 months left, Xing said. Then, Xing turned to Gui and Jiang Hao. I've already arrived in the east, not far from Tianshan continent, Gui said. I'm almost there too, Jiang Hao said. He hadn't actually set out yet, but if Xiao Li and the others arrived at the Bright Moon Sect soon, he could just arrive there. They might be almost there. My people have reached the eastern region too. Friend Xing, you can try to contact them, said Dan Yuan. Then, The stone tablet appeared in front of Xing. It was offering a communication method. All right. Xing nodded in gratitude. Then, he began to explain the new mission. There are a total of 3 locations. They are unpopulated and not very important. They are in the south, north, and west. You can choose where you want to go, Xing said. I'll go to the south, Gui said. She then looked at Jiang Hao. In that case, I'll go north, Jiang Hao said. He wanted to keep a distance from Gui. That left the west for Dan Yuan's people. He didn't know if Dan Yuan himself would appear there or someone else. Chapter 413, Chapter 413, Another Tooth. Chapter 413, Another Tooth. If it was Dan Yuan, it would be dangerous. If it were others, that would be fine. However, having Hong Yuye with them this time was a big help for him. As long as they didn't confront him directly, there usually wasn't much to worry about. This time they weren't going to take action anyway. They were there to just help with the conference. Everyone knew that those who could appear within the stone tablet were not ordinary people. Their influence far surpassed others. That's why Xing assigned them this mission. If they did what they had to and went their separate ways, there wouldn't be any problems. All right, I'll inform you about the location. It's quite a large area. You can pay attention to it. If you want to change your position and enter the Bright Moon sect, you can do that too, said Xing. The stone tablet appeared in front of Jiang Hao and the other 2. Liu stood aside and observed. He couldn't participate for now. Soon, the stone tablet disappeared. Jiang Hao received the location from it. It was a mountain peak in Twin City. As for the exact situation, he would need to find out when he got there. But the mountain peak was indeed a better choice. The place would provide him with a good view and less possibility of getting ambushed. With the location confirmed, they checked whether there were other tasks. Gui had no tasks as she was rushing on the road. Jiang Hao had never issued tasks before. Everyone looked at Liu. I heard that Mi Lingyu has returned, but her cultivation has greatly decreased. Mu Longyu is paying a high price to find a method for her recovery. Do any of you have it? Liu asked. How did her cultivation decrease? Gui asked. Some say it's because of the Lawless Tower. I don't know what that tower is, Liu said. I know. It's where the Heavenly Note sect detains prisoners. Their cultivation is absorbed, and their realms shatter and weaken, Gui said. Indeed, I've heard that Jiu Qing was in a similar state. Restoring her cultivation isn't so simple, Xing said. Several people looked at Jiang Hao. Don't look at me, Jiang Hao sighed inwardly. He then turned to look at Dan Yuan. Dan Yuan smiled. Any decrease in cultivation won't be able to affect the original foundation. If there's nothing wrong with the body, with spirit stones and pills, recovery is possible. However, most people require a process. They need to keep nourishing their cultivation, one realm at a time. If they are overseas, using blue clear coral is the best. Seeing Liu nod, Dan Yuan said, this will serve as the previous reward. Liu had a few questions in mind. He decided to use the rest of his questions carefully. Recently, I heard the news about Shongan, Xing said. It said that Bright Moon sect invited him, but his master refused for the sake of advancement. Advancement? Dan Yuan was surprised. Did people from the Bright Moon sect go? They did. Xing nodded. If this person truly possesses the sage's heart, once he advances, he will draw a portion of the luck of the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment. Dan Yuan was quiet for a moment. He then smiled. However, if he really possesses the sage's heart, he definitely won't advance at that time. Shongan's advancement would affect the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment. If his reputation dominated the East, it would be the same. So, the Bright Moon sect's people had gone to meet him. If he could advance a little later, it would be better for all of them. If both their disciple and Shongan advanced at the same time, it would affect the Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment. The Heavenly Tao Foundation establishment would benefit the entire world, so the Clear Sky School would definitely take it seriously. Jiang Hao recalled Shongan in the corpse realm. He was indeed a good person, but he had suffered a lot. He had even deceived him once. Shongan intended to save the charm goddess. Jiang Hao had agreed to help him and then had hurtled him out of there. After that, it was hard to find him. Shongan also had no hope of entering the corpse realm again. The eastern region had no corpse realm flower. I wonder if I can see Shongan this time and witness just what an extraordinary genius looks like. Gui chuckled. Jiang Hao didn't really want to see Shongan. He would have some grievances against Jiang Hao. After that, Liu talked about the overseas situation. It was about a small island, which seemed to have gotten involved in conflict. It was causing losses on both sides. But it wasn't clear who was driving this conflict. Jiang Hao didn't pay much attention to it. The gathering ended. Back in his room, Jiang Hao took out his notebook and started jotting down the things he had learned. First, Dan Yuan's task was still ongoing. The Saint bandits were hiding in the east and had appeared in the south. Secondly, the mission for the Bright Moon sect was confirmed. He needed to head to the Twin City Peak in the north. Thirdly, the cultivation lost from the Lawless Tower could be recultivated. It required some kind of nourishing process. Finally, Shongan was about to advance. It was highly probable that he was taking a different path, and perhaps he had given up on the charm goddess. Previously in the corpse realm, Jiang Hao saw that Shongan had used the mantra of oblivion to advance. But Shongan couldn't possibly forget the charm goddess. She should definitely take a different path. After that, there was the matter of the overseas small island. Looking at these records, Jiang Hao felt that the second point was the most important. It was also the most likely location where he might encounter unexpected situations. He relied on Xiao Li and the spirit beast to enter the Bright Moon sect. But if those two caused any trouble, it would take Jiang Hao forever to reach the Bright Moon sect. Jiang Hao closed the book and decided to take a nap. He felt it would be good for his state of mind. In the eastern sky, a huge ship moved forward. On the ship's deck, Chu Chuan was sent flying backward. His face was swollen and bruised, and his body was covered in injuries. Xiao Li descended from the sky. Her fist slammed down. Bang! Chu Chuan coughed up a mouthful of blood and his aura weakened. "Junior brother, you should get up. Let's continue," Xiao Li said excitedly. Xiao Li was now at the Foundation Establishment realm. Chu Chuan was at the 9th stage of the Lifeblood Refinement realm. He had asked for the fight. They were about to arrive at the Bright Moon sect, and he still hadn't advanced to the Foundation Establishment realm. So, he had asked Xiao Li to help him. "Here, I have a delicious treat for you," said the spirit beast and fed Chu Chuan a healing pill. Chu Chuan's injuries were somewhat healed. "Let's continue," Chu Chuan said defiantly. Xiao Li appeared even younger than him, as if he were being beaten by a child. How could he accept that? Bang! Another punch and a tooth that had been just fixed flew out of Chu Chuan's mouth. Ku Wu Chang was standing at the edge and watching everything. He had become accustomed to it. Mu Qi and Han Ming were both by his side. "It seems that junior brother Chu is also about to advance," Mu Qi said with a smile. Xiao Li had now become a true disciple. No one had expected Xiao Li to reach the Foundation Establishment realm within the year. There were no signs. They only realized it when Xiao Li woke up the next day and complained about hunger. Han Ming looked at Xiao Li and felt the pressure. However, he had his own goals and didn't need to pay much attention to them for now. Ku Wu Chang sighed softly. It was useless to try to instruct Xiao Li, as she would fall asleep after listening for a moment. And whether she understood the cultivation method or not didn't matter. He stopped trying to teach her. Xiao Li excitedly ate a few more bowls of rice. Ku Wu Chang walked inside and didn't pay attention to it anymore. Mu Qi led Han Ming toward Chu Chuan. "Junior brother Chu, would you like to spar with senior brother Han?" Mu Qi asked with a smile. Chu Chuan nodded. Senior brother Han would give him some pointers. The people from other sects nearby were no longer surprised when they saw this. "I heard they're from the demonic sect. It seems like they enjoy bullying their fellow disciples. Stay on guard. Who knows when they might suddenly become aggressive." Han Ming didn't even bother listening to them. They were just a bunch of small fries. Chapter 414, Chapter 414, became the team leader. Chapter 414, became the team leader. While Jiang Hao was waiting for Xiao Li and the others to arrive at the Bright Moon sect, he received a sect mission. This mission was different from the previous ones. It involved clearing the sea fog cave beside the mining site. The cave produced poisonous mist, and their goal on this trip was to use magical artifacts to clear the mist. The sect would provide talismans, pills, and tools to disperse the mist. As long as they were careful, there wouldn't be much danger. What was unusual this time was that he, as someone who had achieved the peak of the Foundation establishment realm, became the leader of this mission. The only good thing about this mission was that they didn't need to stay in the toxic mist for a long time. Staying inside for too long would lead to poisoning that would affect their cultivation. Therefore, they usually went during the day and returned at night. They could come out whenever they completed the task. After handing over the spirit herb garden to Cheng Chou, Jiang Hao headed to the law enforcement hall. On the way, he visited the task hall. It was still the same senior sister from last time. "Want new missions?" She smiled. "Let me check." After flipping through the mission book, she said, "There are relatively simple tracking missions. It's to find out about a Foundation establishment traitor and a Golden Core traitor. There's also a mission to recruit new disciples, plus a mission to eliminate traitors." She looked at Jiang Hao. "Junior brother Jiang, you can accept them now. The weather outside is snowy. It's inconvenient to travel. We've also eased up on compensation. Just 1,200 spirit stones, which can be paid off within 5 years, with no additional interest. You earn 50 spirit stones per month, which is more than enough." Jiang Hao was speechless. It sounded quite reasonable, but it wasn't the right time to go out yet. Each expedition had a time limit of 3 months. It was already December, and they would have to pay the spirit stones before Xiao Li and the others even arrived. "Maybe next time," Jiang Hao said. He left it hanging so that his refusal wouldn't seem abrupt. "Are you really not taking even one mission?" the senior sister asked. "No." Jiang Hao shook his head. These people were eager for others to accept the missions so that they could get spirit stones. Anyone who returned alive from the missions would eventually have to pay off the debt. They would even help introduce missions to put people at ease while doing their work and earning spirit stones. Jiang Hao didn't think about it further, because in a while, he would have to come back to deliver the spirit stones. After more than a year, he had saved up to 12,000 spirit stones. Among them, he had given 3,000 to Xiao Li and the others when they left, and he earned 9,000 over the past year. With his current skill in making talismans, he couldn't even earn 1,000 in a month. Mainly because the sect had entered a period of rest, so there were fewer people using talismans. They weren't selling well since there were many other talisman makers. Although his quality was better, the difference in these talismans wasn't significant. And he couldn't lower the price either. That would offend many people. It was better to take the middle ground. Jiang Hao headed to the location where they were supposed to gather. He faintly heard people mentioning him. "I heard that the senior brother from the Cliff of Broken Hearts is leading the team this time. He practices the Blood Wish path. We need to be careful," said a woman. She was the only woman among the 3 people. She was Qiao Xiu from the 100 Bones Forest and was in the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm. "What is the Blood Wish path? I prefer senior brother Zheng Shejiu from the Ice Moon Valley to lead the team. I heard he's been at the peak of the Foundation establishment realm for a long time and is on the verge of the Golden Core realm. If he leads, there shouldn't be any issues." Jiang Hao could tell that the one speaking was Wu Shi from the Thunderfire Peak and was at the late stage of the Foundation establishment realm. He was in his 30s. "Senior brother and senior sister, it's almost time. Senior brother Jiang might be arriving soon," said the other person. He was an outer sect disciple from the Law Enforcement Hall, Ji Bian. He was at the 9th stage of the Lifeblood Refinement realm. He had exceptional talent. Once they quieted down, Jiang Hao walked over to them. He didn't want them to worry that he might hold grudges against them. If that happened, it would affect subsequent missions. Since he was leading, he wanted to complete the mission quickly and continue earning spirit stones. The immortal peach tree would undergo incarnation this year. The spirit stones he had saved weren't enough. He could only hope that he could sell everything he had on this trip. He should be able to gather enough spirit stones. When he arrived, the three greeted him. "Greetings, senior brother Jiang." Jiang Hao nodded. "Have you received the items provided by the sect?" "We did." The three nodded. "Let's go," Jiang Hao said. Then, he flew up on his sword. However, he suddenly thought of something and snapped his fingers. Ji Bian flew along with him. He hadn't reached the Foundation establishment realm yet. Ji Bian bowed and thanked him. This mission only had 4 people. It was one less than usual. Jiang Hao was fine with it. More people meant more trouble. This mission wasn't difficult. They just needed to be careful. They only had to push the toxic mist a few hundred meters away. Then, they would have a safe period of 3 to 6 months before the mist returned, which would become the next sect mission. Many places in the sect were like this, and disciples were responsible for handling them. Places like Devil's Dens, mining caves, and the Sea Fog Cave were common. There were many more places like these. After a short while, Jiang Hao arrived at a barren hillside near the mining site, which had been heavily excavated. It is said that the Sea Fog Cave was accidentally uncovered during mining. After that, it required annual cleanups. "Take an antidote pill and follow me in," Jiang Hao said as he casually swallowed a pill. He could see the toxic mist here, but it didn't seem to affect him. Qiao Xiu had her hair in pigtails. She followed behind Jiang Hao cautiously. More than the toxic mist, she seemed more afraid of the person in front of her. The other two kept watch on their surroundings. Jiang Hao didn't pay much attention to them. The toxic mist in the Sea Fog Cave was white, and it was easy to distinguish when encountering the poisonous mist from the normal mist. Although there aren't many dangers here, there are still some formidable creatures within the toxic mist. They are said to be extremely fast, and once they catch you, you might not be able to return, Jiang Hao said. As the team leader, he didn't want anything to happen to these people. Qiao Xiu didn't take it seriously. She had heard about these things, but she knew that the probability of encountering a dangerous creature was very low. It wasn't that terrifying. She assumed that Jiang Hao was just trying to win them over so that he could use them for his blood wish path. Ji Bian and Wu Sha had similar thoughts. They didn't consider the danger here to be that great. If they stayed a little further away, they could easily avoid it. They could evade the dangers if they were quick enough. They also had defensive spells, so they wouldn't be caught off guard. Jiang Hao was unaware of their thoughts. Even if he knew what they were thinking, he wouldn't have cared much. There was a chance that they would encounter such a creature. It was better to be cautious. Soon, they encountered a white mist that was unusually dense. It was expanding outward like cumulus clouds. It wasn't spreading very fast, but it was still creepy because they didn't know what was inside the mist. "Let's begin," Jiang Hao said. Some lightning talismans shot out. Boom! The talismans exploded within and thinned the mist. At this point, Jiang Hao held a transparent gourd and activated his technique. The toxic mist was rapidly absorbed. It doesn't feel too difficult indeed. The only issue is that the toxic mist can easily infiltrate the body and cause subtle changes with prolonged exposure. The others maintained their distance while using magical artifacts to absorb the toxic mist. By evening, Jiang Hao was done with the mission and led the group away. They couldn't continue. He could clearly see that if these people continued, their cultivation would decrease. Leaving now was the best choice. However, they seemed somewhat dissatisfied to leave so early. How long would it take to complete a mission like this? But faced with someone who was at the peak of the Foundation establishment realm, they dared not say anything. Chapter 415, The Light in Despair. Chapter 415, The Light in Despair. For half a month, Jiang Hao continued the mission with the group and returned home in the evening. The others felt that they returned too quickly. Sometimes they wanted to complain that a task that could be completed in 2 months was taking so long, and it was uncertain if it could even be finished in 4 months. However, no one dared to voice such complaints to Jiang Hao. They could only nod along. They began to doubt whether Jiang Hao was really someone who practiced the Bloodwish path. If he was, then it seemed he had no intention of turning them into sources of blood for the Bloodwish path. Come to think of it, not everyone can become a source of blood for the path. We've been overthinking, Xiao Xiu said. I wonder how much longer this will take. Should we talk to senior brother Jiang? Wu Shi asked. But what if senior brother Jiang has his own reasons? Saying anything might just delay him, Ji Bian said. Everyone fell silent. It might be better to delay a little rather than offend a senior and become the next target. Being targeted in this place might mean never getting out again. That would be a real disaster. A delay of 2 more months wouldn't cost them their lives, and they could still cultivate at night. It wouldn't waste too much time. Let's pick up the pace during the daytime, Xiao Xiu said helplessly. Now, I'll have to endure the ridicule of my fellow disciples when I return. It took 4 months for a task in the sea fog cave. They finished theirs in just 2 months. Wu Shi and Ji Bian could only nod in agreement. Junior brother Ji, you're from the Law Enforcement Hall, right? Wu Shi asked. Why don't you go and talk to them? The Law Enforcement Hall holds considerable influence. Ji Bian quickly shook his head. Senior brother, please don't put me in a difficult position. Senior brother Jiang is someone famous in the Law Enforcement Hall and also ranks high in the Merit Hall. I'm only an outer sect disciple. Even the seniors in the Law Enforcement Hall and the Merit Hall respect him. I heard the senior in the task hall saying that senior brother Jiang hasn't accepted any missions from them so far. The 3 sighed in defeat. It seemed there was no other choice. They could only endure it for as long as they could. Soon, Jiang Hao walked over to them. Although he didn't hear what these people were saying, he could understand their feelings. Some matters were inconvenient to say aloud, so they remained silent. This was the demonic sect where some seniors who led teams were capricious, and others had no say. He had encountered this before, and now he was becoming that kind of person. Many people exchanged ideas and discussed matters, but he didn't want to participate. It would waste his time. He needed to finish things here quickly. They went deep into the sea fog cave. The surroundings grew damp, and there was no light. They could only rely on magical artifacts for light. Another half a month passed, and Jiang Hao's group pushed forward bit by bit. The deeper they went, the smoother the walls became as if they were artificially carved. I heard there are ruins here, and fierce creatures inhabit this place, Wu Shi said. I heard there's nothing inside except for some ancient relics from who knows when. The sect's people have explored this place long ago, Xiao Xiu said. Jiang Hao looked around. Be careful. We're quite deep now. There might be demonic beasts around. The others nodded, but they didn't treat the matter like a big deal. They weren't ignorant of these things. Afterward, they continued to push forward using magical artifacts and talismans. Once they ran out of sect-provided talismans, they would need to rely on their own spells. They would have to use lightning spells. Otherwise, their progress would be slow. As Jiang Hao looked around, he suddenly spotted some inscriptions on a wall ahead. Although curious, he didn't approach it immediately. He waited until they had pushed the toxic mist forward before going to inspect the inscriptions. He made sure he was within a safe zone. Jiang Hao was slightly taken aback when he saw the inscriptions. It wasn't ordinary text. It was the language of the Heavenly Spirit tribe. Why was it always the Heavenly Spirit tribe? He had heard that tribe's language in the corpse realm before. He thought he would be able to translate those words quickly, but unfortunately, he hadn't been able to decipher them to this day. However, the text on this wall was understandable. It looked slightly distorted as if it had been scratched by claws. These are special characters. I've heard some seniors say there's nothing special about them, Ji Bian said. Jiang Hao nodded. There was indeed nothing special about them. Still, They made him feel strange. The inscription read, "You watch me. Watch me sink to the depths of the sea. Not only are you not in pain, but you're also laughing at my failure." The depths of the sea. Jiang Hao looked at the white mist. Could this place lead to the depths of the sea? It didn't seem very likely. As for whether anyone had investigated this possibility, he had no idea. But he wasn't in a position to investigate. He should just complete the mission and leave as soon as possible. It had been a month already, and another half-month would be enough to complete the mission. The cave grew even larger as if they were entering a ruin. At this point, Xiao Xiu noticed something emitting golden light in front of the mist. She was surprised. She sensed that it wasn't an ordinary object. She had heard that valuable treasures could be found in places like these. "Senior brother Wu, keep an eye on our surroundings. I'll go pick it up," Xiao Xiu said when she noticed that Wu Shi had also spotted it. "Junior sister, wait until we've pushed the mist forward before picking it up. Senior brother Jiang reminded us to be extra careful this time," Wu Shi said. He also wanted to retrieve the object, but he couldn't act rashly. He mentioned Jiang Hao in the hopes that she would give up. This way, he would have a chance. If she found it, she would own most of it even if she shared some of it with them. However, Xiao Xiu had already moved forward. Wu Shi could only give up with a sigh. As for danger, there really wasn't much to be concerned about. They had been here for a month. If it was dangerous, they would have encountered it long ago. Xiao Xiu felt the same. Soon, she reached the object and picked it up. To her surprise, it was only a piece of stone. The stone was emitting a golden light, but she had no idea what it was. Just as she was about to put it away, the white mist suddenly surged. As she stood up, Xiao Xiu saw a tentacle slithering toward her. In a split second, she was ensnared by it and pulled inside. Everything happened too quickly. She hadn't even had time to react. She looked at Wu Shi in fear and hoped she would be rescued. She was instantly pulled into the white mist. She felt terror and despair. Xiao Xiu felt helpless. She trembled in fear. The icy cold robbed her of her strength. Just then, a streak of blade light shone through. Boom! The entire tentacle was severed by a single slash. While she was still puzzled, a hand grabbed her and pulled her away. However, she felt numerous tentacles emerging from the mist. Demonic sound slash. Boom! A tremendous sound rang out, and the tentacles were blocked. Xiao Xiu felt the person pulling her away urgently. It seemed like the person was leading her away from the abyss of death. The next moment, her vision cleared. The white mist vanished, and she was left lying on the ground. She turned to see a figure beside her who was swinging his blade. Moonslaying. At this moment, massive tentacles appeared. Moonlight flashed. With a thunderous crash, the blade collided with the tentacles. For an instant, the tentacles recoiled in pain. Xiao Xiu felt as if she had been pulled away by this person from falling into despair. He had saved her. She felt fear and relief at the same time. Jiang Hao turned to Xiao Xiu. "Rest for a while before we continue," he said calmly. He didn't say anything more. Jiang Hao no longer paid them any attention. Instead, he looked at the white mist. He wasn't sure if it had been an illusion. He felt there was something inside. This place wasn't safe. Chapter 416. Chapter 416. Isn't this too fast? Chapter 416. Isn't this too fast? In front of the ruins, Jiang Hao lowered his head and thought about what had happened. The presence of figures within the sea fog cave was something he hadn't expected. He had never heard of such a thing happening anywhere. Beasts were common, and he knew that the beasts weren't particularly strong. But a human. This was beyond normal. He didn't know if this figure had just appeared or had been there before. If it had been there before, then it wasn't a big deal. But if it had just appeared, the possibility of other unexpected surprises was high. Currently, there didn't seem to be any issues, but he couldn't afford to let his guard down. "Continue pushing forward," Jiang Hao said while looking at Wu Shi and Ji Bian, who were still in shock. Only then did the two of them snap out of it and begin working. This time, they didn't dare to slack off in any way, and they avoided getting too close to the toxic mist. The speed of the tentacles was too fast, and they couldn't keep up at all. A small mistake could lead to being completely devoured. Wu Shi wasn't someone without insight. He could sense just how timely Jiang Hao's intervention had been. His strength, action, and timing had been impeccable. He had a feeling that if it had been any other Foundation establishment realm cultivator, it wouldn't have been as easy to rescue Xiao Xiu. Jiang Hao didn't make any further discoveries. He didn't see any more inscriptions either. Everything was progressing smoothly. Let's head back. Be here on time tomorrow. This time, no one had any complaints. They even breathed a sigh of relief. Over the next few days, no unexpected incidents occurred. It was mid-January when Xiao Xiu and the others were waiting at the cave entrance as usual. Something strange happened, Ji Bian said. I've got something strange to report too, Xiao Xiu said. What strange things? Wu Shi asked. Ji Bian quickly said, Senior Sister Qiao, you go first. After thinking for a moment, Xiao Xiu said, remember when I said that Senior Brother Jiang practiced the blood wish path and warned you to be careful? I remember, but you also said he didn't actually want us to become blood wish path practitioners, right? Wu Shi asked curiously. Yes, that's right. That's the strange part. Xiao Xiu sighed. I suddenly feel like it's not a big deal to offer my blood for the path. You may not understand, but the impact of escaping death has deeply affected me. Wu Shi and Ji Bian thought about it. It would make anyone feel like returning a favor, but they would probably feel unhappy after a while. If they were only good enough to be a source of nourishment for others, they might as well die. What about you, junior brother Ji? Wu Shi asked. I asked some seniors, and they said that our current situation is where they arrived after almost 2 months, Ji Bian said seriously. Xiao Xiu and the others were stunned. Could they be mistaken? Wu Shi asked. No, I asked very clearly. I didn't believe it at first, so I described our situation in detail. They said this is already near the completion of the mission, Ji Bian said. But we've only been on the mission for a little over a month. Moreover, we constantly took a break. Shouldn't it take 4 months to complete? How is it possible that it's already near the end? How did we do it quicker than normal? Xiao Xiu exclaimed in surprise. Before they could continue discussing it further, Jiang Hao arrived. They had no choice but to follow him into the cave to complete the mission. Jiang Hao looked around. He felt that they could complete the task today. As long as nothing went wrong today, they wouldn't need to return to this place again. He could also avoid unexpected dangers. The closer it got to the last day, the more he needed to stay calm. He didn't say anything more than usual and didn't mention that they would complete the mission today. He treated it like any other day. When evening arrived, Jiang Hao saw a stone tablet. He didn't rush over to it as it was still in the mist. He waited until the white mist was pushed far enough back before he approached the stone tablet. 3 words were written on it, Heavenly Note Sect. Jiang Hao breathed a sigh of relief. When he turned around, he suddenly noticed a line of text at the corner of the stone tablet. It was written in the language of the Heavenly Spirit tribe. It was unclear who had left it there, but it seemed like it was something intrinsic to the stone tablet. The meaning of the line was, Do you want supreme talent? Come find me, and I will grant it to you. Jiang Hao ignored it. He had no intention of exploring it. He simply turned around and led the group away. Let's go back. He didn't say it was over. He was worried that someone might be eavesdropping. Jiang Hao didn't leave in a hurry either. He did feel that someone was spying on him. Even so, he didn't dare to speed up recklessly. They left at a normal pace. If they sped up, it might appear as if they were afraid, and whoever it was would pursue them. After safely leaving the sea fog cave, Jiang Hao let out a sigh of relief. It's over. He looked at Xiao Xiu and the others. You can go and report the completion of the mission. You don't need to come here tomorrow. With that, he left on his sword. The 3 of them stood in place. They were stunned. They exchanged curious glances. We agreed on 4 months, But I didn't expect it to end this early, Xiao Xiu said in disbelief. Since they had arrived here, everything had progressed at a rate beyond her expectations. It was too fast. They couldn't even understand why it had gone this quickly. Other seniors struggled for 2 months to complete this task. Their group had taken constant breaks, and they still finished the task earlier than expected. They had prepared themselves to be mocked, but now, they were the envy of others. Wu Shi was also shocked. He had heard this morning that the mission would be complete, and now, it was done. He couldn't believe it. Ji Bian chuckled. Did we stumble upon the quickest method? Maybe it's been simplified. Regardless, once they got back, they could use this news to exchange for some spirit stones. Oh, I forgot to ask. Xiao Xiu flew on her sword amidst the surprised gazes of the two. One need to ask. In the surprised gazes of these two, Xiao Xiu rose on her sword, saying, I need to ask senior brother whether he wants a blood vow. The next day, at the 100 Flowers Lake, petals gently fell on the lake's surface. Whoosh! There was a rustling sound as numerous petals fell from the flowers. Hong Yuye stood at the edge of the lake as her red dress swayed in the wind. Hong Yuye watched as the petals fell into the lake. Then, she returned to the pavilion. After she sat down, a white figure arrived. Sect Master, Baiji said. Speak. Hong Yuye looked at Baiji indifferently. Today, the people from the Law Enforcement Hall went to inspect the mission at the Sea Fog Cave and found a line of text on the stone tablet, Baiji said seriously. What's the content? Hong Yuye asked. It's a prophecy from the Heavenly Spirit tribe. Our people don't understand it very well, but the sentence was translated. It seems to say, do you want supreme talent? Come find me, and I will grant it to you. I'm still trying to find someone to check if the sentence has any other meaning, said Baiji. Is there anything strange? Hong Yuye asked. The person leading the team this time was Jiang Hao. Apart from completing the mission at an extremely fast pace, there were no other anomalies. However, there must be someone behind Jiang Hao. He might not have noticed that the person behind him could also sense it. Of course, it's possible that he's aware but feels that it exceeds his current capabilities. Therefore, to avoid drawing too much attention from us, he chose to conceal it. Our people have started investigating, and there might be some information soon, Baiji said seriously. Chapter 417, Chapter 417, The One Who Erected the Monument. Chapter 417, The One Who Erected the Monument. Hong Yuye was silent for a moment. She didn't immediately give her opinion on the matter. Then, she said, go on. Recently, there have been rumors within the sect concerning the Bloodwish path, and the central figure in these rumors is Jiang Hao. It's being said that he's practicing the Bloodwish path, Baiji said. What's the truth? Hong Yuye asked. He is definitely not practicing the Bloodwish path. However, he hasn't offered any explanation or response to these rumors. I suspect that he didn't spread the rumors, but he might have intended to use the rumors to his advantage to justify his advancement. If he does that, then no one would notice the person behind him, Baiji said. Hong Yuye poured Nursel to cupot tea. What else? This situation might actually benefit us, so we've been waiting for it to be more evident. We might find some flaws in his actions, and it might lead us to the person behind him, Baiji said. Then, is he a traitor or a spy? Asked Hong Yuye. We're still suspicious. He hasn't betrayed the sect so far in any aspect. He seems to be a decent person and isn't reckless or impatient. It's not without reason that someone powerful would take a fancy to him, said Baiji. What about the heavenly fragrance Dao flower? Hong Yuye asked as she put down her teacup. Apart from Zhuang Yuzhen, no one has meddled with the flower, Baiji said. She then hesitated. The person behind Jiang Hao remains hidden in the shadows. It's not out of the question that he might also have his sights on the heavenly fragrance Dao flower. Continue the investigation, Hong Yuye said. Baiji nodded. She understood that the sect master intended to uncover the person behind all of this. Once Jiang Hao's accomplice was exposed, he would find it hard to leave the Heavenly Note sect. And there was no need for him to do so. After that, Baiji briefed Hong Yuye about the end of all things. According to the information so far, they seem to be plotting something on a small island using the Earth Extreme Heart-Devouring Pearl. But we're still uncertain about the person in contact with Azure Mountain. The investigation is ongoing. The team heading to the Bright Moon sect has already arrived in the eastern region and is on their way to the sect. She then went on to explain some other matters. After Baiji finished her report, the sect master didn't immediately respond. Baiji felt puzzled. When she looked up, she realized that the sect master's mind wasn't focused on their conversation. However, it didn't take long for Hong Yuye to snap back to the present. Who was it that erected the monument in the Sea Fog Cave back then? It was Lady Qingyu, Baiji said. Ah, her. Hong Yuye's tone softened. Baiji understood why. This was because the sect master was brought into the sect by Lady Qingyu from the outside world. It was said that Lady Qingyu had only a short time left to live back then. She was merely in the early stage of the primordial spirit realm. Although she was strong, she was getting old. Her position within the sect wasn't high, but no one dared to provoke her. At that time, she had brought back a young girl during one of her trips outside. That young girl was the current sect master. The event had occurred over 100 years ago. Nobody in the sect dared to disrespect Lady Qingyu, even though she had passed away nearly 100 years ago. Keep an eye on those who practice the Bloodwish path within the sect, especially those close to the Sea Fog Cave, Hong Yuye said. Understood. Then, she recounted the earlier matters once again. With that, she left the 100 Flowers Lake. She needed to make arrangements. The depths of the Sea Fog Cave must hide something, so we need to be careful. As for Jiang Hao, we can give him some more time. The sect master wants him to be investigated further, but she also doesn't want to restrict him. The sect currently needs to recuperate and can't afford to deploy too many people. However, based on the sect master's intentions, even if there are issues within the Sea Fog Cave, it wouldn't be a problem. Someone is trying to achieve their goal by using others. It's important to involve as few people as necessary for this. Once these things were settled, Baiji knew what to do next. Jiang Hao completed his mission but still felt uneasy. The figure he saw in the Sea Fog Cave and the feeling of being watched didn't seem like mere illusions. Should I inform Elder Baiji about this? When he was reporting the completion of the mission, the senior had asked him about it. But he hadn't dared to say anything. There was a danger if these things were revealed recklessly. It might not be safe for him to make any noise regarding the figure in the cave. He felt helpless when considering the female disciple who was on his team. She had caught up with him yesterday and offered her blood to be used for his Bloodwish path in exchange for saving her life. She seems to think that I'm practicing the Bloodwish path and that I saved her only to get blood from her. He had thanked her for her goodwill and then politely declined. After he did that, she seemed relieved. That was to be expected. Those who weren't involved with the Blood Vow path wouldn't understand what it was all about. It could potentially impact their cultivation or other aspects. Jiang Hao didn't know how this would play out because he had never seen the techniques of the Bloodwish path. Putting these thoughts aside, he began to consider how to pass the message to Elder Baiji. Then, he went to the Lawless Tower. Inside the tower, he met the black-robed woman. "It's been a while since you visited, junior brother Jiang," she said. Jiang Hao smiled. "Yes. I was on a mission at the Sea Fog Cave. It's strange, but once when I was in the White Mist, I thought I saw someone. However, no one was there the next second. I don't know if it was just an illusion or if the poisonous fog was to blame." "You saw a figure?" asked the black-robed woman in surprise. "What did it look like?" "I don't know," Jiang Hao shook his head. "I've recently received an assignment from Elder Baiji to investigate the Sea Fog Cave. Junior brother Jiang, please let me know if you have any unusual experiences," the black-robed woman said. "Investigate the Sea Fog Cave?" Jiang Hao was taken aback. It seemed that Elder Baiji had already caught wind of something. At that moment, he felt even more uneasy. It appeared that the figure he encountered was indeed unusual. Besides the figure, I also felt as if I was being observed. I can't pinpoint it, but I just felt like we needed to leave the cave as soon as possible, he said awkwardly. I apologize if it sounds silly. No, junior brother Jiang. You've done well. This is very important information. If you ever have any doubts, feel free to come and ask me, the black-robed woman said. Jiang Hao nodded in gratitude. He was relieved that his words were taken seriously. He wouldn't have said anything if it hadn't felt unusual to him. After that, Jiang Hao went to find Zhuang Yuzhen. Without Mi Ling Yu, the place was much quieter. Zhuang Yuzhen rarely spoke. Even when King Hai Luo wanted to engage in conversation, there was no response. So, Jiang Hao talked casually with them. He discussed topics related to the northern region, overseas matters, and even the Bloodwish path. It appeared that the Bloodwish path was mainly practiced in the southern region. There were no practitioners elsewhere, but there were similar cultivation methods. 3.5 months later, it was already early May. While watering the heavenly fragrance Dao flower, Jiang Hao sensed the activation of the communication talisman. It was the spirit beast and Xiao Li's talisman. It seems they've arrived. He headed to the task hall. Senior sister, do you have any new missions? Jiang Hao looked at the familiar face of the senior. We do, said the senior sister eagerly when she recognized him. There are 2 missions. One is to recruit a disciple who our sect initially showed interest in, but was snatched away by the Black Heaven sect. So, the task is to bring him back. The other is to track down a Golden Core Realm traitor. Both of these missions are suitable for you, junior brother Jiang. What if I fail? Jiang Hao asked. The compensation is 2,500 spirit stones, said the senior sister with a chuckle. With more people taking on missions lately, we've been under more pressure. That's why we've increased the price. But don't worry, junior brother Jiang, there's still a 5-year deadline. 50 spirit stones per month should be enough to pay the fine. The first 5 months are interest-free. Only the later period will incur an interest. Jiang Hao was speechless. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.